Chapter 326. Believe in him to the end. For a moment, only Gu Yidao's ear-piercing screams could be heard throughout the medicinal field, drowning out the cries of the other infected people. Everyone was silent while they looked at Gu Yidao's miserable appearance. Their faces were covered in horror and sympathy. Then, such silence was only momentary, as soon the medicinal field broke out into even more emotional discussions than before. It's awful. Fortunately, it's not that brat that'll treat us but Ice Lotus Fairy. Otherwise, we'll end up like that too. Yeah, he obviously could have been saved before, but now his life. Who told young Master Gu to not believe Ice Lotus Fairy, but to believe in that kid who has yet to mature? I wonder if he's happy now that his uncle has been killed. A quack. He's a quack that harms people. The anger from those watching was like a tide that rose and fell in continuous succession, and as it mixed with Gu Yidao's pained howls, it caused Gu Liufeng's hands to clench into tight fists at his sides. He couldn't bear to watch his uncle suffer through such torment, but reason told him to trust Shiyu. Since he'd promised to believe in him, he must believe in him to the end. Gu Lufeng closed his eyes, his complexion deathly pale as his body trembled slightly. The one person in the medicinal field that wasn't affected by the screaming was probably only Hushi. Her expression was calm as she asked Nangongyu for a length of heaven silk, and then used it to tie Gu Yidao up to prevent him from further struggling. Then, she took out her silver needles and crouching down, popped the black blood blisters on Gu Yidao's body one by one. The black liquid slowly seeped out of the popped blood blisters, emitting a stench that could make anyone feel nauseous. And as it flowed out of the wounds, it resulted in Hushi's fingertips becoming slightly stained. Yet it was precisely that pus that could infect people. However, Hushi's expression didn't change at all. Using water spiritual power, she focused it into a fine spray that landed on Gu Yidao's body, washing clean all of the wounds. After all the wounds had been cleaned, Gu Yidao slipped into a coma. Yet even unconscious, he still released pained groans. Hushi looked at Gu Lufeng and indifferently said, "It's done. I predict that he'll be fine after half an hour." Gu Lufeng was startled at first, before his expression immediately turned into one of excitement. His feet staggered due to having been standing so rigidly this whole time, and he almost fell to the ground. Hushi retreated to the side, but one of her small hands was instantly captured by Nangongyu. Before Hushi could react, Nangongyu grabbed her hand and gently pressed the back of it against his lips, and that was precisely the area that had been stained with Gu Yidao's blood. Hushi raised her eyebrows and whispered, "Didn't you see that I was just touching pus and blood? It was contagious. Aren't you afraid that you'll get infected?" The expression on Nangongyu's face remained calm, while his eyes were gentle as he looked at her. If Sheer was infected, then this king would happily share the same fate as his princess. "Who's your princess?" Hushi unhappily retrieved her hand, but a corner of her mouth raised as she explained. "The pus in Gu Yidao's body is no longer contagious, but you've already guessed that, right?" Hearing that, Nangongyu snorted. "If I had thought that it posed any danger to you, Sheer, do you think that I would have let you save him regardless of your safety?" Hushi didn't speak and instead turned her head away. This guy is as overbearing as always. His desire to be in control is too strong. However, while this scene was happening around Hushi, the people on the other side who were still watching Shangguan Rui's condition had complete faith in Feng Lianing. Gu Yidao remained unconscious, with pain visible on his face. Although the blood and pus on his wounds had been cleaned up, the festering wounds still existed. Occasionally, black and yellow liquid would leak out, looking rather wretched. Chapter 327. Begging for an antidote. Watching Shangguan Rui, who had eaten the 5 elements blood coagulation pill, they could see that he was now breathing as steadily as a normal person, that he could stand and walk normally, and that the wounds on his body had begun to heal. Comparing both sides, Feng Lianying's medical skills were more advanced than Hushi's. Consequently, everyone sneered at Hushi and Gu Lufeng, enjoying their misfortune as they asked Feng Lianing for a 5 elements blood coagulation pill for themselves. However, although Feng Lianing had a lot of 5 elements blood coagulation pills, it was impossible for her to supply it to everyone. This meant that many poison martial artists could only helplessly watch their bodies festering, without the opportunity to be cured. Ice Lotus Fairy, I beg you, give me a blood coagulation pill. My brother is going to die. Someone kneeling in front of Feng Lianing was piteously entreating her before they were soon kicked away by someone else. Who do you think you are? You're merely a rogue cultivator. One without any sect or clan, but you dare to ask Ice Lotus Fairy to waste a precious 5 elements blood coagulation pill on you? Don't dream. Such weak people like you guys originally shouldn't have entered 100 Herb Mist. Now that you've come here to die, blame your own bad fate, don't blame others. That's right, if low martial artists like you guys are going to die, then just die. Why fight over medicinal pills with us? Ice Lotus Fairy, I am the disciple of Black Ice Clan's great elder, from How You Country. We, the Black Ice Clan, and the Luli sect, have always been on good terms. Please give me the antidote. Feng Lianing looked at the person who was currently kneeling at her feet, and trying to win her favor as they begged for an antidote, and the pride on her face couldn't be concealed. This kind of worship and the feeling of holding someone else's life in the palm of your hand was wonderful. There were only 2 bottles of 5 elements blood coagulation pills in her hands, so naturally, she couldn't assign them to those who had no sect or clan. They were of no assistance to the Feng family or her reputation. Soon, all of the 5 elements blood coagulation pills had been divided, with most of them being given to the children of influential families or the elite disciples of large sections, while those who didn't manage to receive the medicine were forcibly banished to the side by disciples of the Luli sect to prevent the infection from spreading. Those people huddled together. The excitement on their faces had long since disappeared to be replaced with despair. Someone couldn't help shouting, Ice Lotus Fairy, don't you have any compassion in your heart that allows you to take pity on our lives? Why are you only saving powerful people, but ignoring us? Exactly. You're unworthy of your name, you faker. So if the martial artists who were children of influential families are worth saving, don't tell me our lives are unworthy. Wah! Who will save my father? However, those people's curses and protests were halted by a fierce attack technique from the disciples of the Luli sect. If anyone dares to slender Ice Lotus Fairy again, I'll let him die now. Since all of you are in this condition, just blame yourselves for overestimating your capabilities and having delusions of getting your hands on the herbs in the medicinal field. As you've all fallen to such a state, you only have yourselves to blame. These people's hearts were full of desperation, but unfortunately, they were powerless to do anything. They could only silently bear the ridicule from the children of influential families, and watch as one by one, they took a 5 elements blood coagulation pill from Ice Lotus Fairy's hand, while they could only wait to die. However, just when those people had all received a 5 elements blood coagulation pill, and were about to swallow them, a sudden scream was heard. Shangguan Rui, standing behind Feng Lianing, was releasing an ear-piercing scream. It looked like Shangguan Rui's face that had already healed, at this moment, was being squeezed by a force from inside of his body, making his entire face continuously distort and deform. One rogue cultivators literally translates as loose cultivators. Independent cultivators are unaffiliated with any sect, clan, or other martial organizations. Chapter 328. Exploded. Shangguan Rui's face was filled with fright and pain, and his body kept rolling about on the ground. The blood blisters that had already disappeared were now reappearing extremely fast. However, it was far from over. When everyone was at a loss of what to do, a loud bang was suddenly heard from Shangguan Rui as his body unexpectedly exploded. Black pus and blood splattered everywhere, and even 2 disciples of the Luli sect weren't spared. It was too late for them to flee and they ended up splashed with blood. After the explosion, everyone looked at the place where Shangguan Rui had been reclining, finding that there was no dead body or bones, just a large pool of blood. The most terrible thing was that the blood seemed to be alive as it struggled to squirm towards the crowd. For a moment, everyone was shocked by the incredible scene before their eyes. It was only after a long while that someone finally screamed, their expression one of horror as they ran away. When the blood neared where Hushi and the others were, a man in black clothes slowly stepped forward with an indifferent expression on his face. Opening a porcelain bottle he held in his hand, he then poured a medicinal liquid onto the blood. The blood violently bubbled, and with an almost pained sound, It seemed to want to flee. This medicinal liquid was like the blood's nemesis. It desperately wanted to escape, but it was powerless to do anything. After a short time, the blood disappeared in a plume of steam. Everyone stared blankly at the scene. They just couldn't believe their own eyes. Shangguan Rui, he actually exploded. Moreover, he turned into a pool of blood? What did that mean? Did it mean that the 5 elements blood coagulation pill was ineffective at curing Shangguan Rui and had killed him instead? That meant that Ice Lotus Fairy was incapable of treating those infected with poison. Instead, the 5 elements blood coagulation pill that everyone had been fighting over just moments before was actually a poison that would kill them. Arg! Some of the martial artists let out terrified screams as they started throwing the pill, which had been so hard to get, as far away from them as possible like a hot potato. However, several of them who'd already swallowed a 5 elements blood coagulation pill went completely pale. And with their bodies twitching, they dug their fingers down their throats to vomit the pill out. Since they'd swallowed a 5 elements blood coagulation pill, then didn't that mean they would become like Shangguan Rui and ultimately turn into a pool of blood after suffering a violent death? No dash. That was impossible dash. They didn't want to die. Feng Lianing, didn't you say that the 5 elements blood coagulation pill would definitely cure us? Then what on earth happened to Shangguan Rui? You vicious woman, you lied to get me to take a 5 elements blood coagulation pill. If I die, my master will never let you go. What Ice Lotus Fairy? She's nothing but a swindler posing as a medical genius. Pa! Feng Lianing, if my senior brother dies, my Ling Xiao sect will refuse to ever be allies with you. Feng Lianying's face had currently turned a horrid shade of green and purple. She couldn't at all believe what had just happened. Shangguan Rui had actually died. Impossible. It was simply impossible. Her diagnosis, her medicine, how could any of it be wrong? It must be that Shangguan Rui was infected by another poison. Right. That's right. The problem must have come from Shangguan Rui himself. With this thought, Feng Lianing suddenly shouted, "The problem isn't my medical skills, and my diagnosis wasn't wrong. This was just an unexpected tragedy caused by Shangguan Rui's own problem. If you don't believe me, try it again. The next person won't suffer from such a situation." Chapter 329. Mad. The 5 elements blood coagulation pill is definitely the cure for intoxicated blood poison. However, how could any of those people still believe her? And they indignantly shouted, "You want us to try again? Do you want us to end up as miserable as Shangguan Rui? Keep dreaming." Feng Lianing was furious after hearing all the accusations and watched as the martial artists from influential families refused to eat the 5 elements blood coagulation pill, while those who'd already swallowed them forcefully vomited them out. Feng Lianing suddenly took out an additional 3 pills that she'd hidden inside her sleeve for bargaining with in the future. Then, she rushed towards the martial artists without influence. The group of banished martial artists had initially been rejoicing that they'd escaped from such a calamity, but now that they saw Feng Lianing rushing over, they immediately screamed and fled in all directions. At this moment, Feng Lianing had completely lost all traces of sanity. Wearing heavenly silk gloves on her hands, she grabbed a person, and then stuffed a 5 elements blood coagulation pill into his mouth as she murmured, "There won't be any problem. My diagnosis will never be wrong." In order to speed up the effect of the 5 elements blood coagulation pill, she even forced some of her spiritual power into that person's body. This would cause the medicine to be rapidly absorbed, regardless of the impurities in the pill that might cause harm to the martial artist. However, after the period it takes an incense stick to burn, Feng Lianing quickly retreated in horror. With a loud bang, another person exploded and turned into a pool of blood that squirmed about on the ground. Oh, dead. Dead again. Shun her dash. Feng Lianing, you vicious woman, return my son's life. Shun her. The martial artist's mother saw the pool of blood that used to be her son, and with her eyes red due to hatred, she charged towards Feng Lianing. However, her cultivation base was nowhere near good enough for her to be an opponent with Lu Li Sek's bodyguards, and she was quickly kicked to the ground, causing her to spit out blood. The group of powerless martial artists were now alarmed, and they glared at Feng Lianing with hatred and resentment. This woman, in their eyes, had been as beautiful and as pure as a goddess in the heavens. Now she'd revealed herself to be a ruthless and viciously evil woman. What's the use of calling such a woman Ice Lotus Fairy? It's simply insulting the title of a fairy. At this moment, Gui Dao, who'd remained unconscious on the ground the whole time, groaned and slowly opened his eyes. Gu Liufeng's face filled with surprise. Quickly helping to support his uncle sit up, he asked, "How are you feeling, uncle? Do you feel better now?" Gui Dao bared his teeth and frowned, but eventually he stretched his lips into a smile. "You can rest assured, Lufeng. I feel much better now." Hushi crouched down and grabbed his wrist to take his pulse before nodding. "The poison in your body has been completely expelled, while your wounds are no longer weeping pus. You can now use your spiritual power to assist in healing your wounds." Sure enough, Gui Dao's wounds were now only leaking healthy red blood, whereas previously they'd been oozing a black-yellow liquid. Gui Dao bit his lip, as though he was suffering from pain, and he slowly began to circulate his spiritual power to nourish the wounds on his body. A moment later, the wounds that had slowly been trickling blood dried up. Although it wasn't possible for them to completely heal right away, his body seemed to be in a much better condition than it was before, and he could even see again. Gui Dao looked at the wounds he'd sustained that were no longer bleeding. His body trembled slightly, and he stared gratefully at Hushi. I didn't think that I'd survive. I thought I would have died already." Chapter 330. Why? The rims of Gu Liufeng's eyes slightly reddened and glinted as he looked at Hushi, his voice hoarse. "Shiyu, I don't know how to thank you. Anyway, if you need something in the future, I, Gu Lufeng, won't hesitate to brave any danger for you, without a word of complaint." "Rubbish. Didn't you help me before?" While speaking, Hushi threw a bottle of medicine to him and indifferently said, "Applying this to his wounds can help speed up the healing. However, these wounds are a bit unusual, so they might not disappear within a month." The meaning of her words meant that she didn't accept Gu Liufeng's promise to give her his life for saving Gui Dao's life. At most, what she'd done was only repay the favor she owed Gu Lufeng. Moreover, the words "we're friends, aren't we?" that Gu Lufeng had previously said remained in her mind. Friends. She didn't quite understand the meaning of this word though. A smile reached Gu Liufeng's eyes, and he finally recovered his usual languid and graceful expression. He took the medicine bottle and smiled lightly. "Unexpectedly, saving your life has turned into one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life." The atmosphere around Hushi and Gu Lufeng was very harmonious. However, Nangongyu, watching from the side, had a dark and gloomy expression on his face. He recalled that in Zijin Palace Hushi had faced him with a cold scowl, as if she would off all relations with him. This made his heart pound with fear, so for a moment, he didn't dare do anything too rash. Nonetheless, Qing Long noticed his master's gloomy expression. So, quietly coughing, he stepped forward and said, "Young Master Shi, your medical skills are indeed amazing, but we still have many things that we don't understand. Even though the ingredients for your medicine and Feng Lianying's were the same, how come Gui Dao survived, while Shangguan Rui became a pool of blood?" "Yeah, you're right." Wu Yu also moved closer, his face filled with a smug excitement as he said, "Moreover, if the spiritual plants in the medicinal field were eaten, wouldn't they be poisonous? How come Gui Dao was able to eat them but still be okay?" At this time, everyone's gaze and attention were focused on this lively group of people. Gui Dao seemed healthy, his wounds were beginning to heal, and there was no trace of a poisonous backlash. They were so shocked that their eyes were almost popping out of their sockets. This Foundation establishment stage boy had actually managed to cure this strange poison, while Ice Lotus Fairy, who'd they all previously placed high hopes on, and had spoken with such confidence, had ended up terribly failing. No one expected the results to be so unexpected. At the same time, once Feng Lianing had seen that Hushi had really cured Gui Dao, she completely lost her mind. She didn't believe that her medical skills were inferior to that slut's. Impossible dash. Impossible dash. My diagnosis was absolutely not wrong. I'm a 5th-ranked doctor, and a direct disciple of Thousand Venom Valley's master. How could I lose to this slut? Give me the pill, and I'll find someone to try the medicine again. I will never admit defeat." Hysterical yelling like a maniac echoed around Thousand Herb Mist, and everyone looked at the woman's sinister expression, feeling nothing but disgust and hatred. This so-called Ice Lotus Fairy was merely an idiot with an undeserved reputation. She had no excellent medical skills. What was even more embarrassing is that she'd obviously failed. Yet she still wanted to try her medicine on innocent martial artists, regardless of people's lives. She was really too shameful and malicious. The moment when Feng Lianing was about to find someone else to try her medicine, a palm ruthlessly landed on her face, causing her to stagger to the ground. When Feng Lianing looked up, she saw Feng Yunjing's cold, murderous look. "Until when do you want to keep losing face?" Chapter 331. Genuine Antidote. Feng Lianying's mouth gaped open, her heart filling with resentment. Just as she was going to say something more, Feng Yunjing's next words made her tremble, and she no longer dared to act recklessly. "If you dare tarnish the reputation of the Feng family again, I'll send you to the ancestral temple of the Feng family, and you can never think of coming out." Going to the Feng family's ancestral temple meant that her name would be removed from the Feng family records. From then on, her life would be over, and she could no longer appear on Miluo continent. That, for Feng Lianing, who was filled with pride and a thirst for power, was simply a fate worse than death. On the other hand, when Hushi heard the inquiries from Qing Long and the others, the hint of a smile flashed in her eyes. She didn't answer but instead took out a spiritual supplement pill. Next, she walked over to the spreading pool of squirming blood and dropped the pill on it. Everyone was puzzled and couldn't help but gather closer. Soon something shocking to everyone occurred. The blood that was originally only the size of 2 palms suddenly made a pfff noise after the spiritual supplement pill was thrown into it. Then the area of blood grew bigger and bigger, while the speed it was squirming at rapidly increased. The way that the blood struggled and pulsed was like a blood demon coming to life. While that spiritual supplement pill, at this time, had been entirely swallowed up. Everyone's mouths opened wide, astonishment showing clearly on their faces. Gu Lufeng murmured, "This poison can become stronger by swallowing spiritual power? So that's the reason you eliminated the spiritual power within the spiritual herb, and in my uncle first?" Hushi nodded, unhurriedly answering, "Purple monkey flower, pomegranate fire fruit, and dragon grass are indeed the nemesis of this poison. However, the rich spiritual power contained within these herbs is actually the greatest source of nourishment to this poison. Which means the herbs that were originally ready to detoxify the poison not only didn't work, but instead made the poison absorb the spiritual power and become stronger." In fact, Hushi had read about it in the overflowing cauldron pill scripture, that this poison was indeed the blood-intoxicated poison, and that purple monkey flower, pomegranate fire fruit, and dragon grass were the antidote. However, because the way to make blood-intoxicated poison had long been lost from Miluo continent for so many years, many people were unaware of the real character of this poison. That spiritual power was its food. Feng Lianing thought that she knew the nemesis of blood-intoxicated poison and how to detoxify it, but little did she know the correct way to cure the poison. In addition to it requiring purple monkey flower, pomegranate fire fruit, and dragon grass, the most important part was that all the spiritual power within the herbs and the patient had been expelled. For a long time now, spiritual power was a nemesis to all poisons. In general, as long as the spiritual power was strong enough, it could easily resist the erosion of all types of poison. However, for blood-intoxicated poison it was the opposite. Spiritual power was instead its most vital nourishment. It's no wonder that Feng Lianing took it for granted that the 5 elements blood coagulation pill would be able to help. As for why some of the herbs in the medicinal field can be consumed, and some of them are poisonous, Hushi smiled leisurely before she indifferently said, "I can only tell you that I'm able to distinguish them one by one. Which herbs in this field are poisoned, and which ones are normal. But as for the method to differentiate them, forgive me, but I can't tell you that." The fact is that she didn't really know how to explain, because it was a kind of intuition she'd gained after dealing with poisons for many years. She only needs to smell them and see them, and she could tell right away whether or not the things in front of her were poisonous. Although Hushi's explanation was anything but detailed, it was still much clearer than Feng Lianying's. Those people who were still worried about Gu Yidao suffering from residual effects now no longer had any doubts. Chapter 332, Disobedient and unfilial. This youngster before them was only about 15 to 16 years old with a cultivation base at foundation establishment stage, but no one expected that his medical skills would be so formidable. The crowd was in a daze at first before they suddenly returned to their senses. Then all of them suddenly rushed to her and kowtowed before her. Godly doctor, a person as great as yourself would, of course, forgive such offenses committed by us lowly people, right? Please save us. That's right, that's right. Saving our lives will be a most meritorious deed. Please be merciful and give us a cure. Watching those shameless people now begging Hushi, Wuyu waved his fan as he sneered. My, I wonder who was it that just finished insulting my young master Shi and said that he was a quack who would kill people? And who was it that said my young master wasn't even worthy of carrying Ice Lotus Fairy's shoes, and saying that they mustn't let him leave the medicinal field alive? Now that you know that my young master is extremely skilled, you turn to him to seek help from him to save you. I wonder how many faces you all have. Everyone was so ashamed, to the point that their faces were filled with resentment. Wu Yu's words were obviously too relentless, making them all lose face. However, as they felt the poison within them flare up once more, their little lives flashed before their eyes. How could they still consider their reputations? They didn't respond to Wu Yu's words, and instead kept incessantly weeping for help with faces filled with snot and tears. At this time, a man covered in blood and on his last breath suddenly crawled out from the crowd. He didn't crawl towards Hushi as everyone else did, rather, he crawled to Gu Lufeng and tugged at his clothes as he hoarsely said, Lufeng, you're Morong Lufeng, right? Gu Lufeng looked down at him. Although the person before him was completely different, he recognized his identity at a glance. He was the head of the Morong family, Morong Zhangfeng. Gu Lufeng narrowed his eyes, and suddenly, a blade appeared in his hand, and he quickly cut off the corner of his clothes that was being pulled by Morong Zhangfeng. Then he coldly asked, Who are you? Do I know you? Don't pretend. I heard all your conversations with Gui Dao. Although Morong Zhangfeng had tried to lower his voice as much as possible, his extreme anger still made his voice sharper. You're a disobedient and unfilial bastard. Obviously, you're offspring of the Morong family. Yet these past few years you've actually been colluding with strangers to attack Morong family's medicinal hall. You bastard, Morong Feng is your father. The Morong family is also a place where you were born and raised, but you actually dare to bite the hand that feeds you. Don't you fear retribution for what you've done? Gu Liufeng's face was covered with a mask, so the only things visible were his cold eyes and the slight smirk hanging on a corner of his mouth. You people from the Morong family are devoid of consciences and unafraid of retribution for your bad deeds. So why would I be afraid? You dash. You are indeed Morong Lufeng. You bastard. Morong Zhangfeng was so enraged that he suddenly raised his voice and continuously bellowed. You're the same as that shameless mother of yours, nothing but cruel and unscrupulous. We of the Morong family raised you for nothing. Morong Zhangfeng's curses were said in such rage that the speed of the poison in his body became faster because of his emotions, causing him acute pain that made his anger be quickly replaced by fear. He looked up and saw Gu Lufeng slightly lowering his head until he couldn't see his expression. He was embarrassed and ashamed of cursing, so he quickly said, I can overlook these small matters. Now quickly get me the antidote from that kid. When I return to the Morong family, I'll ask for you to be dealt with leniently. Chapter 333. For what reason? Everyone in the crowd around Hushi, because of Morong Zhangfeng's yelling, were all focusing on Gu Lufeng. Hushi sauntered towards Gu Lufeng, glanced at Morong Zhangfeng, then whispered, What's going on? As soon as she'd finished asking, she noticed that his body was trembling slightly and his hands hanging by his sides were clenched into fists. It was clear that he'd reached an extreme level of anger, and when Morong Zhangfeng saw Hushi, surprise flashed on his face before he shouted, Genius Dr. Shi, I'm the head of the Morong family, Morong Zhangfeng. Give me the antidote, and as long as you save me, my older brother and my Morong family will owe you our thanks. I believe in that. In Yanjing City you must have heard the name of my Morong family, right? Hushi sneered and arrogantly looked at him. Her eyes were full of contempt. Who are you? The disdain and contempt in her voice were clear. The people who heard it couldn't help but snigger. Morong Zhangfeng, however, was so angered that the flesh on his face trembled. But even so, when he remembered that his own little life was in the grip of the other party's hands, he didn't dare act rashly and suppressed his anger. I'm not just the head of the Morong family, but also Morong Liufeng's paternal uncle. You just saved Morong Liufeng's maternal uncle, so why don't you save me too? Morong Lufeng? Hushi raised her brows, and then looked at Gu Lufeng. She saw him looking at Morong Zhangfeng and Morong Hai, who was unconscious, with a gaze as cold as a blade. That gaze was like he was going to dismember their bodies. The crowd who'd been begging suddenly started gossiping. Isn't the man who's wearing the mask young Master Gu, the owner of Shengda Hall, Gu Lufeng? Why did the head of the Morong family call him Morong Lufeng? Is he a member of the Morong family? But I'd heard that Shengda Hall was suppressing the Morong family, even seizing half of the Morong family's market in the city outside of Yanjing City. If Gu Lufeng is a member of the Morong family, then isn't he too disobedient and unfilial? Everyone looked at Gu Lufeng with gazes filled with questions and anger. However, Morong Zhangfeng had started rejoicing in his heart, as this was the perfect opportunity to take advantage of the situation, because unfortunately, the poison in his body was getting stronger and stronger, while Morong Hai, who was lying beside him, was now barely even breathing. Morong Zhangfeng quickly yelled at Gu Lufeng. Morong Lufeng, you still haven't gotten genius Dr. Shi to give me the antidote. Give you the antidote? Gu Lufeng, who'd been silent all this time, finally began to speak. His voice was full of bitter resentment and sarcasm. Morong Zhangfeng, you want me to save you? For what reason? Is it based on the matter of you treating my mother and I worse than dogs? As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his hand to take down his mask. In the next moment, everyone exclaimed and sucked in sharp gasps. Appearing in front of them was an ambiguous face. It was incomparably handsome, and yet it was also gorgeous. Unfortunately, as it happened, there was a long ghastly scar running from his brow to just under his right ear. This scar was blood red, and was like a centipede crawling on his face. It was a vivid contrast to his slightly pale skin. His initially handsome face had been transformed into one of a horrible monster due to the scar. Although it was only a single scar, with the hatred reflected in Gu Liufeng's eyes, and Morong Zhangfeng's eyes that avoided looking at the scar, everyone could easily tell that the Morong family must have treated Gu Lufeng and his mother exceptionally poorly. Chapter 334. Thank you. Morong Zhangfeng's guilty conscience was soon taken over by his heartlessness and selfishness. You unworthy offspring! Your mother was nothing more than a concubine, and you are nothing more but a bastard. We raised you and only occasionally hit you. Is disciplining unscrupulous children unnatural? If you know what's good for you, then give me the antidote. If not, when I go back, I will remove you from the Morong family records. From then, your only option is to die and become a lonely ghost. Gu Lufeng burst out laughing. Then he coldly stared at Morong Zhangfeng. What I regret most about my birth was that I was born in the Morong family. If you can remove me from the Morong family, then I will have to thank you. Unfortunately, to return to Morong family, you must live past today, and this matter is easier said than done. I won't kill you. I just don't wish for you to die an easy death. I want you to experience a slow and painful death filled with despair. Compared to death by a knife, this will be far more interesting. Morong Zhangfeng trembled when he met Gu Liufeng's gaze. At this moment, he no longer wished for Gu Luifeng to save him. His only option is to look towards Hushi. Repeatedly kowtowing, he said, Genius Dr. Shi, please pay no mind to that unscrupulous brute's nonsense. As long as you save my life, Morong family will give you 3 finished properties. Hushi faintly smiled and suddenly pulled a bottle of the antidote out of her sleeves. Morong Zhangfeng's face was wild with joy as he stared at the bottle. He believed that Hushi had finally been persuaded by him. However, Hushi turned around and threw the antidote to Gu Lufeng. Lightly laughing, she said, "The bottle contains herbal medicine and intoxicated blood. When they are mixed together, the reaction is very interesting. If you wish to see him suffer more, then sprinkle some on him." You guys. Morong Zhangfeng didn't expect to die. His whole heart was once full of expectation, but this has become the result. Taking the medicine bottle, Gu Liufeng's face, which looked fierce due to the scar, held a somewhat heartfelt smiling expression. He slowly stepped forward, and before Morong Zhangfeng could slander him again, he had already sprinkled the medicine on him and the unconscious Morong Hai's bodies. The only sound was, "Ah." The cry broke through the heavens and everyone present at the scene's eardrums rung. Subsequently, Morong Zhangfeng and the originally unconscious Morong Hai were both painfully rolling around the floor. The pair of them were incessantly wailing as thin black blood oozed out of their bodies. The grief-filled howls continued on for the length of time it takes to burn a stick of incense. The black blood consumed both men's bodies, completely melting them. Gu Lufeng slowly took the bottle of medicine and poured some intoxicated blood on the thin blood. Soon after, the blood made zzz sounds before evaporating and completely disappearing. His fierce-looking face carried an expression of both grief and hate that couldn't be dismissed. When he turned around and faced a young youth with matchless beauty and clear, black eyes, Gu Lufeng suddenly felt as if the stone, which had been weighing in his heart for many years, had been moved just a tiny bit. He walked forward a few steps, gazing deeply at Hushi, saying, "Hushi, thank you." "I." Hushi raised her hand up, interrupting him. "Wasn't it you that said friends do not have to thank each other?" Gu Lufeng stared blankly, his long eyelashes faintly trembling. The bright red scar on his face caused his expression to look more fierce, but his mouth held a shallow, gentle smile. In order to extort those pitiful people, he wouldn't leave any hands out. 4. With Sheng Dahal's master Gu Liufeng's added help, both men were ruthless, causing the group of people to quickly become angry. Truth to be told, if my level 3 pills were exchanged for crystals, it would be several 100,000. Yet this was still not enough to invite several doctors. You still can't hate enough? Acting like you guys, who are profiting from someone's misfortune, really can't saving people. Where is the doctor? Isn't it just made up of purple monkey flower, pomegranate fire fruit, and dragon grass, which is then baked with spiritual energy? This old man is also a level 2 doctor. I don't believe that I can't do it too. Wu Yu and Gu Lufeng watched as everyone ran into the medicinal field to find herbs for medicine while shouting curses. The pair of them weren't even worried in the slightest. On the contrary, they took joy in the calamity. The group of people believed that just by knowing the prescription, they would be able to imitate Hushi's detoxification method. Soon, they will realize how stupid they are. But some people couldn't stand the intoxicated blood poison, fearful of the pain it brought. Unable to bear it any longer, they finally took out a treasure that they had obtained from the secret territory to exchange. This is the level 5 magical beast inner pill I obtained from Huang Mo territory. In order to get this level 5 inner pill, I nearly got eaten by the magical beast. Originally the plan was to use this inner pill in order to advance a level. Now my life is quickly slipping away. What talk of advancing a level? This inner pill is for you. Quickly give me the antidote. 1. Compared to requiring payment, how is this any different? The Ice Lotus Fairy is essentially only picking the people who would be able to help her in the future. 2. I wouldn't even hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. Not afraid of any difficulty, you would be happy to do just about anything for another bite of Hushi's food. 3. She felt as if this Wuyu didn't deserve the title of a glutton. He threw away all integrity just to eat something. I feel like the author means that the title of glutton isn't enough to describe how much Wuyu would do for food. 4. He wouldn't leave any hands out. Wuyu will expend all of his energy into this, he'll give it his all. Chapter 336. Vile thoughts. Wuyu accepted the inner pill and checked it over. Suddenly beaming with joy, he handed over a bottle of Hushi's boiled medicinal juice. Remember to clear your body of spiritual power before taking it. No longer daring to tarry, the youth emptied his body of all spiritual power. Soon after, he quickly drank the antidote. Right after he drank the antidote, Severe pain began to spread. The pain caused him to repeatedly howl, rolling around on the floor. But before half an hour even passed, the pain began to gradually reside, and the pus on his body also completely disappeared. Even the wound began to rapidly heal. He felt his spiritual power return to his Dantian one, and the burning pain in his internal organs faded away. The youth couldn't help but laugh. Facing Hushi, he dropped to his knees with his hands clasped. His face still held some of his previous unwillingness. Thank you, genius doctor, for saving my life. Compared to one's own life, any medicinal pill isn't important when you don't have a life to live anymore. At this moment, the people who entered the medicinal field to collect herbal medicine in order to imitate Hushi's refining method to make the boiled medicinal juice, shockingly discovered that the moment their spiritual energy touched the originally green herbal medicine, it would immediately turn into ashes. It was much harder to accomplish than Hushi's effortless demonstration suggested. Now, everybody had no other way out. Additionally, people were already able to obtain the antidote after exchanging their treasure. Who dared to still hesitate? One after another, they took out their treasures to exchange with Hushi. From far away, Feng Lianing clenched her fists. She watched Hushi's stars gathering around the moon appearance, too, and bit down on her teeth until they made GG sounds. Suddenly, she heard the sound of clunking and her well-taken care of little finger's fingernail broke in half as she felt a burst of pain. Why have I been beaten by such a low-lying waste? How many years have I spent cultivating? My teacher is the master of Thousand Poison Valley. My hard-earned reputation suddenly brought upon this result. I don't accept this. I'm not reconciled. Heaven is unfair. I must make that slut pay the price. Feng Lianying's voice was coarse, completely opposite to her usual sweet and dainty sound, and her whole face was even more terrifying. Nie Jinshan worriedly supported her, softly saying, Lianing Mei 3. Don't be angry, it's bad for your body to be angry over trash. Nie Jinshan didn't even get to finish speaking before Feng Lianing swung her hand up and ruthlessly slapped his face, shrieking, Get lost. Who do you think you are? Who let you touch me? Don't think I know your vile thoughts towards me. You only covet my status and good looks. Pa, I don't even dare look at what status you have. Merely someone with no family background, just a disciple of Luli sect. Are you worthy of me? Can you match up with Big Brother you? Get lost. Go far away. Putting a hand over his face, Nie Jinshan was in disbelief. His face got scratched by Feng Lianying's fingernails, leaving traces of blood. To the side, disciples of the Luli sect watched the pair. His expression was full of pity and joy over another person's calamity. All the admiration and ties of friendship in his heart transformed into embarrassment and hate. Nie Jinshan bowed his head, tightly clenching his fist. He didn't utter another word. The brightness in his eyes dulled a bit. Feng Yunjing saw the whole moment between Feng Lianing and Nie Jinshan and coldly laughed. Silly woman, simply wasted Feng family's cultivation from these past few years. 1 Dantian. The Dantian is where one's chi resides. It's located 2 points below the navel. 2. Stars gathering around the moon appearance. Everyone embraces or surrounds one thing. 3. Mei, younger sister. Chapter 337. It's better to go back with me. If she wasn't the Thousand Poison Valley's master's favorite disciple, then he would have long tossed aside this woman who lost face for Feng family. As expected, children of concubines really didn't deserve to be in the public view. Feng Yunjing lightly swung his arms and lowly spoke to a trusted confidant on the side. Looks like this grassland doesn't have the stuff we need. Prepare to leave here immediately. Yes, young master. The trusted confidant answered, bowing. However, looking to the side at the Luli sect disciples who had been knocked unconscious by the intoxicated blood poison, he couldn't help but ask, Young master, what do we do with these 2 people? Originally the Luli sect disciples stayed far away and nobody got infected. But unfortunately, Feng Lianing allowed Shangguan Rue to take the 5 elements blood coagulation pill. As a result, Shangguan Rue exploded in front of everyone, and 2 of Luli sect's disciples who were caught off guard were touched by a little bit of the pus. Sure enough, they got infected as well. Feng Yunjin's eyes were ice cold. lacking any emotions. Leave them here to die on their own. Suddenly his heart moved. He consciously checked, looking towards his treasured Hushi. The youth was like a painting, the skin was the color of snow. Their eyes were full of bright stars. The bright red lips were lifted on either corner. The youth had unparalleled seductiveness. As Feng Yunjin's eyes looked on, he suddenly turned to walk towards the youth. Right at this moment, Hushi was also checking over the treasure Wu Yu and Gu Lufeng were handing over. Every speck was the same. Her heart blossomed with joy. These indeed were level 5 magical beast inner pills. Previously, she worked extremely hard but was only able to obtain 2 of these. This time, she's able to replenish Dan Dan and the little golden dragon again. Furthermore, 12 level 4 books which could be used to save the lives of groups people. Really couldn't be better. Unexpectedly, there was also a flying skill book which was able to increase speed. Clicking her tongue, there definitely wasn't a price for this on the market. While Hushi's face remained calm and collected on the outside, she had long gotten extremely excited in her heart over the prospect of earning money. Taking the next box, Hushi was just about to open it when suddenly she felt her eyes darken, and she was enveloped in a shadow. Very quickly, she heard Feng Yunjing's icy voice. Hushi, 2 of my Luli sex disciples were infected with intoxicated blood poison. So, Hushi raised her head up, looking at him and coldly asked. Standing very close, Feng Yunjing could take the youth. Or he ought to say the young girl's clear and neat face was pleasing to the eyes. He couldn't help but smile deviously. It would be better to go back with me. If you're able to treat my subordinates, your ability could also be used by my Feng family. Saying this, Feng Yunjing slowly stooped down. His hot breath came out as he controlled the desire to slowly spit in Hushi's face. You can rest assured, I won't treat you unfairly. Whatever Nangongyu gives you, I can also give. Furthermore, I can give even more. How about it? Hushi, who had been sluggish for half the day, suddenly reacted as if she heard a joke, rubbing her ears. Excuse me. This Feng Yunjing and Feng Lianing just a moment ago wanted to join together and kill her. Suddenly, he now wants her to come back with him to Feng family and still asks her how about it? Is this person experiencing a mental breakdown? Or has their brain short-circuited? But before Hushi could say anything, a pair of black shadows wielding swords came down from the sky, ruthlessly chopping towards Feng Yunjing with killing intent. Feng Yunjing already had his guard up and began rapidly retreating. But he also sacrificed his magic weapon before he was able to even consider avoiding 2, who seemed to attack with the intent to destroy the earth. Boom! The earth shook as lightning came down. Chapter 338. Give it to me. Slowly flashing, Nangongyu's figure was like a fantasy, arriving to stand beside Hushi. He extended his hand out to take Hushi's hand, drawing her closer to his chest. His cold gaze stared towards the nearby Feng Yunjing, saying, Feng Yunjing, don't let me remind you a 3rd time. Sheer is mine. Don't try and lay a hand on her again, or don't blame me for not being polite. Feng Yunjing's face didn't hold a lot of anger, but it did have coldness and disdain. Nangongyu, even though your Hell King Manor's reputation is considered impressive, but my Feng family's prestige is impressive too. Good poultry chooses wood. 1. I trust that genius doctor she knows which option is the best one to choose. The burst of electricity, although short, was able to attract everybody's attention. At this moment, just as Feng Yunjing said these words, everybody turned pale with fright. Looking southward, Nangongyu waited and watched as the absent-mindedness in everyone's eyes turned to restrained fear and respect. Hell King. This is the famously brilliant His Highness Hell King. At the mere age of 15, he was able to become a gold core and become Miluo continent's #1 genius. Using his own strength, he was able single-handedly to fight against the magical beast troops. He was able to save Jinling country from downfall. That His Highness Hell King. Not only that, he is also cruel and cold-blooded. With his Xianyuan sword, he slaughtered thousands of lives, completely dyeing the soil on Guijin mountain range red. He is the Lord of the Netherworld. Feng Yunjing seemed to have not saw everyone's shocked expressions. Looking at Nangongyu with a sneer, he slowly said, Not to mention, you are the famous His Highness Hell King. With your prestige, you could get any beautiful girl you wanted. Why are you so stingy, holding on to a girl who's merely at foundation establishment stage? How about this, you give Shiyu to me. I promise that later on 1/10 of the medicinal pills Feng family produces each year, we'll gift to you. How's that? Everyone, having heard this, all simultaneously let out a sigh of relief. This was Feng family's yearly production of medicinal pills. Saying these pills are priceless still wouldn't be considered too much. Who didn't know that Feng family had a Grand Master level refining pharmacist? In the entirety of Miluo continent, the amount of Grand Master level refining pharmacists were like feathers of a phoenix. 2 each year, only 12 medicinal pills were produced and sold. Each of these medicinal pills were priceless and couldn't be bought with money. Everyone couldn't help but look towards Hell King. In their minds, although the foundation establishment stage youngster was a natural talent and had some skills, how could he compare to Feng family's medicinal pills? They thought, as long as Hell King's brain hadn't malfunctioned, he wouldn't refuse. However, Nangong expression was extremely chilly. He seemed extremely angry, comparable to a gunpowder barrel which was ready to burst at any given time. He looked coldly at Feng Yunjing, slowly raising the black sword he was holding in his hand. The sword's killing intent sent a shiver up everyone's spines. Feng Yunjing, if you wish to court death, then I don't mind helping you. Feng Yunjing narrowed his eyes and swept them over Nangong Yu and Hushi. Faintly smiling, he said, "This was merely a suggestion. Nangong, even if you don't agree, you don't have to get so angry. You can go back and think this over. The promises I made today are forever valid. If you change your mind, you can find me at any time." Finished speaking, he looked towards Hushi and the blazing light in his eyes flashed away. "Shiyu, Feng family's doors are always open for you. You can also come find me at any time." Finished speaking, he threw out a dark red wooden tablet before turning around to leave without stopping. One good poultry chooses wood, has a similar idea to a talented person chooses a patron of integrity, or a fine bird chooses the best tree to nest in. 2 feathers of a phoenix, metaphor for precious and rare things. Chapter 339. Plan ahead. Hushi picked up the wooden tablet, turning it around in her hands to look at the entire thing. This was actually the token to Feng family's outer door, and its level was quite high too. Non-inner core disciples aren't allowed to block it. Not bad. This really was going to the Feng family to kill someone for his property. An indispensable move, ah. Hushi beamed, storing the command tablet in her space. Seeing this, Nangong Yu couldn't help it and his expression became extremely ugly. He took Hushi into his embrace, coldly surveying her, he said, "Sheer, if you dare to leave me to go into another man's embrace, then I will." "I will." "You will do what?" Hushi raised her eyebrow up. She happily looked up at him. "You'll kill me." Nangong Yu's breath stilled. He felt as if this person was both crafty and beautiful, allowing him to love and hate her. He wished he could marry her immediately, so he could shut her away and not allow anybody else to covet her. But the reasonable part of his mind told him, Sheer was different. He couldn't possibly lock her up for a lifetime and break her wings. She had her own world and wonderful life. Hushi saw his cold face trying to repress his emotions. He had the appearance that he would burst at any time. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Even if I wished to go into another man's embrace, I wouldn't choose to go to that mental case. Feng Yunjing, okay? You seem to think there's a hole in my brain, and I would look for a tyrant. Ah." Saying this, she walked away and didn't bother him anymore. She minded her own business, continuing to open all the treasures Wu Yu had gotten. Nangong Yu watched Hushi leave, but he didn't move for a long time. His eyes stayed at the site where Feng Yunjing and his subordinates left from. Qinglong stepped forward to the side. He softly said, "Master." Nangong Yu's long eyelashes dropped down, hiding his stormy mood. Then with a slow and low voice he said, "Notify Wu Xan, prepare ahead." Qinglong was startled. His face betrayed his emotions. "Master?" This decision was related to Ming Wang Manor and Master's future. Master understated the decision. Was it because of the matter concerning Feng Yunjing? Or was it because of Wang Fei too? Qinglong wanted to say more, But when he saw Nangong Yu's cold and indifferent expression, he swallowed his words. In any case, Master's command was their everything, they just have to follow it. Yes, Master. Qinglong bowed. The indifference in his eyes slowly turned cold. Just for this day, Mingwang Manor has already endured silently for long enough. During this time, the treasures collected by Wu Yu and Gu Lufeng was quite a lot. At one side, Hushi examined these treasures and then threw them into her space. Just thinking about the amount of yuan crystals she could get from these treasures, she became very happy. One night turned into a rich feeling. It truly was too refreshing. Genius Dr. Shi. Suddenly there was a male's hoarse voice sounding from above her head. Hushi lifted her head up to discover a middle-aged man, who was about 30 years old. Although his cultivation base wasn't high, his body was intact, apparently unaffected by the intoxicated blood poison. The man's skin was very coarse and his hands were full of scars and calluses. His eyes were muddy and seemed to be filled full of sadness and hate. But they were also filled with helplessness. Meeting Hushi's gaze, he didn't have many words to say. Instead, he took a jade box from his arms and handed it to Hushi. I heard them say Genius Doctor. She was looking for Burning Heaven Realm's divine dragon fruit. I accidentally got this in Burning Heaven Realm. I hope Genius Doctor she won't ignore this. 1. To kill someone for his property, idiom. Similar meaning to robbing someone to Wangfei Princess. Chapter 340. What do you want me to do for you? Hushi blankly stared. Then suddenly she opened her eyes wide. For a split second, she thought she heard wrong. Divine dragon fruit. Although she did deliberately mention to Wu Yu that she was looking for the divine dragon fruit, she never thought she would be able to get it through this exchange. After all, the divine dragon fruit was extremely precious. The process of obtaining it is very challenging. Forget about even a few people being able to obtain it. But, even if one does manage to obtain the fruit, with its high value, who would be stupid enough to trade it away? Hushi accepted the jade box and opened it. After taking one look at it, she already knew this really was the divine dragon fruit. This divine dragon fruit was little golden dragon's most needed spiritual fruit. It was the one which could heal him the most. Speaking to the middle-aged man, her tone was very mild. Do you have any relatives who need me to detoxify or save them? Bring me over to see them? Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man stood in the same spot he was originally. His face was filled with sadness and desperation, and after a while, he finally said, "No more. No more. There's already nobody left, it's too late." He suddenly turned around, pointing to a distant silhouette of a woman lying down. Then he pointed to the ground where the blood boiled, then disappeared. Distressed, he said, "Genius Dr. Shi, do you understand now? That is my wife and son. Just 1 hour before they were still alive. Although my son was infected, he at the very least had the will to live. But Feng Yanling. It's all because of Feng Yanling, that malicious woman. Unexpectedly, she forced my son to eat the 5 elements blood coagulation pill, letting my son explode and die, becoming nothing but a puddle of blood. My wife was so angry, she went to argue. But she ended up being seriously injured by Luli Temple's people. I'm unwilling, I'm very unwilling. Clearly, our family is nothing more than insignificant warriors. And Luli sect, everybody minds their own business. For what reason did Feng Yanling not take our lives as lives? Why did she allow my family to fall apart? The family is bankrupt, and the people are dead." 1. The middle-aged man's voice was full of suffering and despair, breaking one's heart. Tears were flowing down his face. Hushi was silent for a long time, gently pinching the jade box. Lowering her voice, "You gifted me the divine dragon fruit, but what do you want me to do for you?" The man miserably shook his head. "After losing my wife and child, these material items no longer have any worth to me. My family passed on specific ways to make charms. My family stayed in Burning Heaven Realm for 7 days and 7 nights, ambushing people. With great difficulty, we were able to obtain this divine dragon fruit. The original hope was to improve my son's aptitude, giving him the ability to enter an influential sect to give him a more promising future. But now it's all over. All finished. What use is this divine dragon fruit to me now? The man's voice got heavier and heavier, filled with more and more sadness and hatred. He seemed to have lost all hope before slowly lowering his voice. Genius Dr. Shi, if I was to say I had any hopes left, it would be that one day when you deal with that slut Feng Yanling, when you give Feng Yanling and Lu Li sect a tragic end. Let me watch this scene with my own eyes. Hushi raised her eyebrows up and noncommittally said, How do you know that I will deal with Feng Yanling? And how do you know that I have the strength to bring Lu Li sect to a tragic end? 1. The family is bankrupt and the people are dead. Idiom. The man's family is ruined and he has nobody left. Chapter 341 White hairs of old age. The middle-aged man's eyes had a glimpse of gloominess, slowly saying, Just based on the fact that Genius Doctor Shi is able to cause Feng Lianing, a level 5 doctor, to lose face in front of everyone, as well as the fact that His Highness Hell King stands behind Genius Doctor Shi. I'm willing to gamble, so I'm going to gamble my desire for revenge on Genius Doctor Shi. The corner of Hushi's mouth curved a bit, weighing the jade box in her hand, nodding her head. Good, considering this divine dragon fruit, I promise you. The middle-aged man's face finally showed a slight smile. He took out a silver talisman from his arms and handed it over to Hushi, respectfully saying, This is my personally prescribed 1,000-mile talisman. Even though it can only be used once. As long as you burn this talisman, then no matter what corner Genius Doctor Shi is at in the Miluo continent, I will be able to receive the message at any end of the earth. Hushi took the silver talisman, slightly swaying. She watched the middle-aged man stumbling back to his wife's side, mournfully crying as he carried her cold corpse. Suddenly, a pair of hands covered her eyes, blocking her line of sight. Nangong Yu's low and gentle voice sounded out. Don't look anymore, Shir and this king. We will definitely live together until we have white hairs of old age. There won't be a day where we're separated by life and death. Hushi took his show and turned around to glare at him. Who will live together and have white hairs of old age with you? Don't you have your Feng Yanling Mimi one? Nangong Yu reached his hand out to pinch her nose. The expression on his face expressed both helplessness and pampering. Shir, if you say this again, I'll take it as if you're jealous of me. Hushi slapped his hand. Her gaze landed on the jade box. She must immediately go back into her space to help little golden dragon absorb the spiritual power from the divine dragon fruit. But to be able to enter her space, she had to be asleep. Hushi grabbed at Nangong Yu's sleeves and softly said, Lean your shoulder down. Not waiting for him to respond, she leaned her head against his shoulder, closed her eyes and entered her space. At first, Nangong Yu stared blankly. But soon after, his mouth curved up into a gentle and sweet expression. He reached his hands out to bring the sleeping girl into his embrace. This girl must have been so busy these past few days, she must be so tired. But Hushi, who had entered her space, was shocked. In the entirety of her space, she couldn't spot Dan Dan's figure. She didn't even know where the purple abyss vine ran off to. It only left a small purple trunk in front of the spot Hushi was standing at. Hushi yelled for Dan Dan several times, however, she didn't receive any response. This scared Hushi so much, her complexion changed. It wasn't until Purple Abyss Vine linked to her again that she let out a sigh of relief. Afterwards, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her space created a screen. The screen showed a vast medicinal field. Inside the vast medicinal field there was a pink pig, and the Purple Abyss Vine happily traveling back. Having gotten their location, the pair immediately ate a green spiritual plant, completely devouring it. However, her space didn't have any high-level spiritual plants in it. But the strange thing was that when she was just recently outside, she didn't find any changes in the medicinal field. Through the help of the Purple Abyss Vine, Hushi was able to establish a connection to her own small spoiled chowhound. Dan Dan, didn't you say there were terrifying things inside this medicinal field, causing you to be very afraid? Dan Dan was just eating to his heart's content, and when he heard Hushi's question, he couldn't answer truthfully. After a while he was finally full and started giggling. One Mimi, younger sister. In this situation Feng Yanling is not his blood-related sister. Chapter 342 Eating while packing leftovers. Mother, the food here tastes good. Even though it's black and smelly, when I eat it, Dan feels as if it tastes very good. The strength that bad woman destroyed is all back too. Black and smelly? Hushi was both astounded and worried. Dan, are you sure you can eat these spiritual plants? What about the intoxicated blood poison? Dan rolled around in the medicinal field, exposing his white round belly. Happily laughing, he said, Mother is dumb. Because there is anti-purple abyss here, there's no possible way to be poisoned. Ah. The smelly and black items have been given to anti-purple abyss. The rest are all for Dan. Awoo. Awoo. It's so delicious. Mother, do you want some too? Anti-purple abyss. These two, when did their relationship become so good? Moreover, why has he been calling purple abyss vine anti-purple abyss? Shouting ant towards a plant. Dan, are you sure your logic is sound? Anti-purple abyss will quickly arrange a difficult fantasy array. We are here to eat. Together, Mother and that friendly older brother didn't even find out. He. So while we were eating, we were also packing leftovers. Therefore, if we want to continue eating in your space, we can. Mother, is Dan clever? Very good. Unexpectedly, he even knew about packing leftovers. He really is clever. At the same time, Hushi felt Purple Abyss Vine's idea. Incomparably proud, the little Purple Abyss Vine sat in her space, swaying around as if expectantly awaiting Hushi's praise. Hushi's mouth twitched, but she looked at the high-level spiritual plant that got thrown into her space. Going forward to touch Purple Abyss Vine's trunk, encouraging it. The Purple Abyss Vine suddenly began swaying more joyfully, adopting the appearance of an epileptic. Hushi swore that if the high-grade spiritual plant could talk, it would have been laughing uncontrollably by now. But after determining that these two wouldn't run into any problems, she let out a sigh of relief. In fact, the spiritual medicines in this 100-herb garden were truly real. But she didn't know why. For some reason, there were many spiritual plants in this garden. The levels of these magical plants weren't high, but they were very much like weeds. Their vitality was also extremely vigorous. After growing for a millennium, they covered nearly the entirety of the medicinal field. From the outside, the magical and spiritual plants looked the exact same. However, the magical plants would secrete a poison. For example, these specific magical plants would exude the intoxicated blood poison. And once a soldier died of poisoning from these plants, their body would rot into the soil and the spiritual energy would seep into the air, becoming the best nourishment for these magical plants. In fact, in the beginning, these magical plants weren't scary. Especially in the central plains of Miluo continent, one's chance of ever encountering these plants was exceptionally low. There also wasn't any soil to nourish the magical plants, to add on to the fact that these plants were a rare sight. As a result, so many high-level soldiers, including Feng Yunjing, didn't recognize these magical plants. However, Purple Abyss Vine was different. It was originally a level 5 magical plant, so these low-level magical plants were not only crushed, because they contained a strong spiritual spirit, they also became Dan and Purple Abyss Vine's food. Those genuine spiritual plants from the medicinal field were all thrown into her space by Dan, so Hushi didn't bother with those two gluttonous individuals. She turned to look at the little golden dragon's current situation. At this moment, the little golden dragon was still fast asleep. Although the wounds on his body seemed to have healed, his whole spirit was still very poor. Anti-purple abyss will quickly arrange a difficult fantasy array. We are here to eat. Together, Mother and that friendly older brother didn't even find out. I'm not too sure what the author meant here. Apologies for this. Chapter 343 Real Identity. Hushi had seen the method to taking the divine dragon fruit in the All Living Things record. Very quickly, she used a pure fire spiritual power to extract juice from the divine dragon fruit. It dripped into the little golden dragon's mouth. Afterward, little golden dragon's body emitted light golden color. Its originally dim scales got a gloss to them. The little golden dragon struggled to open its eyes and saw the familiar figure. The figure emitted the sweet fragrance of grass and wood. Although the smell was weak, It let the little golden dragon feel as if this figure was trustworthy and dependable. It was truly strange. This was the formidable golden dragon, but he wanted to depend on a weak mortal girl. The little golden dragon's whole heart was heavy and quickly closed its eyes again. Its tail subconsciously curled around Hushy's wrist, brushing against her palm. Hushy let out a sigh of relief, glancing over the little golden dragon again to ensure that its injury was healed. Following that, she looked towards her hand, which was holding the divine dragon fruit, that had already lost all its spiritual power and juice. All that was left was a layer of skin and the pit. But if she planted the pit in her space, would it sprout and grow more fruit? Hushy decided to indulge in her fantasies, and took the divine dragon fruit's pit to plant in the ancient rhyme spirit field. She gave the little golden dragon more drops of spiritual spring water. Then she left her space. When Hushy opened her eyes, she felt a male near her. Hushy's whole face turned red when she discovered that her whole body was nestled in Nangongyu's embrace, and her head was resting on his stomach. She clearly only borrowed his shoulder to lean on. Hushy stood up straight, and pushed herself out of Nangongyu's hug. She heard his voice laced with regret saying, "Sheer, why don't you sleep a little longer? This king's shoulder is always open for you to lean on." Hushy grinded her teeth, preparing to slap Nangongyu. But suddenly, a body began to rot, emitting a foul smell. A man from the crowd came out, running towards Hushy and throwing himself at her. Without needing Nangongyu's command, Hell King Manor's bodyguards quickly came forward to block the man. However, the man refused to let this stop him. Repeatedly crying, his hoarse voice rang out, "Shiyu, I know your real identity. I know who you are. As long as you save me, I'll tell you your true identity." Nangongyu's eyebrows furrowed. The man's yelling caught a lot of the surrounding people's attention. He quickly covered them with a void spiritual barrier, keeping everyone's prying ears out. He looked at this man, whose face was completely covered in blood, making people unable to make out his true facial features. Then he coldly said, "Who are you? If you want the antidote, why don't you just take out a talisman to exchange for it?" The man shivered under Nangongyu's gaze, his voice trembled. "Your Highness Hell King, please spare this humble one's life. I am the elder of Nalan family, Nalan Yenming." Hearing these words, Nangongyu's eyebrows jumped up. Without speaking, he and Hushy both looked towards each other. Hushy's expression was somewhat grave. Nowadays, her appearance was completely different from Nalan Hushy's. Although this was someone from Nalan family, they still shouldn't be able to recognize her. But Nalan Yenming said he recognized her? Nalan Yenming didn't see the change in Hushy and Nangongyu's complexions, but he still sucked in a breath. "I already exchanged my talisman for the antidote, but it still wasn't enough to completely get rid of the poison in my body." "The antidote wasn't able to completely detoxify the poison?" Hushy's eyebrows raised. "What were you doing previously?" Nalan Yenming's eyes flashed. However, his life was on the line, so he didn't dare to conceal anything, and began to immediately explain the situation. Chapter 344 Nalan Yenming. As it turns out, Nalan Yenming originally entered the sealed dragon domain's secret territory with many life-saving pills gifted from Nalan Jingza. One of these pills was the famous 9 unequal wrongs pill. This pill would be able to save someone, no matter how serious the poison. And if the poison couldn't be completely relieved, it would at least delay the spread of the poison. It's due to this pill that Nalan Jingza was able to enter the Doctors Association as a rank 3 doctor. The Doctors Association only allowed rank 4 doctors in, and each Doctors Association member had a unique and unmatched skill. With Nalan Jingza's ability, he wouldn't be eligible to enter the Doctors Association. Actually, Nalan Yenming entered the medicinal field at the same time as Hushy's group. When the mist was cleared, many warriors seized the opportunity to enter the medicinal field, and Nalan Yenming was one of them. In the beginning, Nalan Yenming didn't enter the medicinal field, so he didn't get poisoned. However, he wanted to curry favor with the Feng family, and ultimately entered. In the end, he wasn't careful enough and touched some of the pus. Once he got affected by this strange intoxicated blood poison, he immediately ate his 9 unequal wrongs pill, believing that the poison wouldn't be able to kill him. Unfortunately, he found out that after eating his 9 unequal wrongs pill, it didn't detoxify the poison. On the other hand, it seemed to cause the poison to rot his body much faster than others. Adding on to the fact that Feng Lianing was unable to treat people using her 5 elements blood coagulation pill, Nalin Yanming thought he was utterly screwed. However, he didn't expect a youngster, at only foundation establishment stage, named Shiyu would be able to successfully detoxify people. It wasn't until this moment that Nalin Yanming started to take a closer look at Hushi, and the more he looked, the more shocked he became, because the appearance of the godly doctor named Shiyu was uncannily similar to that person. And that person's medical skills was also exceptional, exactly the same as the ones this person in front of him had. Nalin family also obtained some of that person's medicinal inheritance, which was the only reason it was able to reach the status it had today. The more Nalin Yanming thought, the more scared he became and the more excited he became. If he was able to bring this youngster back to Nalin family, then Nalin Manor's glory would be around the corner. But because Hell King supported Shiyu, Nalin Yanming didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. However, he didn't expect that because he had taken the 9 unequal wrongs pill, even though he took the antidote, the poison didn't completely improve like everyone else. Although it delayed the poison taking his life, the poison was still spreading in his body. Seeing that he was going to meet a violent death soon, he disregarded Hell King's power and rushed towards Hushi. Contrary to one might think, after hearing that Nalin Yanming took the 9 unequal wrongs pill, Hushi immediately knew what had happened. Although the 9 unequal wrongs pill contained detoxification qualities, it also had large quantities of spiritual power, which happened to be what nourished the intoxicated blood poison in Nalin Yanming's body. So naturally, her antidote wasn't enough to completely detoxify Nalin Yanming. Hushi squinted her eyes at the kneeling blood man, and slowly said, "You said you knew my real identity. What do you mean?" Nalin Yanming suddenly became lively again, hurriedly taking out a scroll from his storage ring to hand to Hushi. Hushi slowly unrolled the scroll, and as the picture slowly unfolded, a beautiful woman in palace clothing came into view. Chapter 345. Third Young Master Nalin Ziyan. At this time, Wu Yu and Gu Lufeng both walked up and stood behind Hushi, but when they saw the woman in the scroll's appearance, they sucked in a cold breath. This woman's phoenix eyes, perfect and jade-like skin resembled Jiutian Xuannu one, as if she Jiutian Xuannu had come back down to the secular world. But what was the most shocking was that this woman's appearance was 78% the same as Hushi's. Looking closely at Hushi, people could almost image Hushi in woman's clothing. Gu Lufeng's eyes held enthusiasm and shock, but he quickly pushed his feelings away, forcibly suppressing his throbbing heart. Wu Yu couldn't help but exclaim out in surprise, "This isn't his family's Wangfei, right?" He looked at Nan Gongyu, then at Hushi, and saw that his master's facial expression remained unperturbed. Not only that, his tender eyes never once stopped looking at Hushi. Hushi already knew that the woman in the scroll was this body's mother, and Lingyue. However, Hushi looked towards Nalin Yanming and indifferently asked, "Who is this?" Nalin Yanming said at once, You first must save me. As long as you save my life, I'll tell you everything you want to know." Hushi sneered at him, looking at him condescendingly. "I don't accept your deal." Finished speaking, Hushi turned and began to walk away. Seeing her carefree appearance, Nalin Yanming panicked. He hurriedly walked 2 steps forward, loudly saying, I'll talk. This is Lingyue. She is the concubine of the current head of Nalin family, Nalin Jingzhu." Slowing down, Nalin Yanming lowered his voice and with a dignified look he slowly said, "And you're most likely the child that Nalin family lost more than 10 years before." Nalin Ziyun. Hushi's heart was slightly moved, but her face remained unmoved. She sneered, "Nalin Ziyun? Do you take me as a 3-year-old child, thinking you'll fool me so easily? In all of Yanjing City, who doesn't know that Nalin Manor's third young master, Nalin Ziyun, was sent off to become a disciple of a large sect's master? If I am Nalin Ziyun, then who was the person sent away to the large sect?" Nalin Yanming's eyes were anxious, his eyes showing his internal struggle. However, he kept insisting, "You must believe me. You truly are Nalan Ziyun. You are my Nalan family's child. If not, then how could your appearance so closely resemble an Lingyue's? Hashi merely sneered. In this world, how many people look alike? This is just some insignificant picture. Yet you want me to believe your lies. Do you take me as an idiot? Nalan Yanming felt the poison in his body seem to worsen. Seeing that Hashi didn't believe him, he felt both fear and hate. He thought, just wait for this stinky boy to return to Nalan family. He must torture this youngster. Only then can he eliminate today's humiliation. However, he didn't dare to show his resentment on his face. After hesitating for a while, he had no other choice but to clench his teeth and neutrally say, I'm sure that you are Nalan family's third young master, Nalan Ziyun. Because that other Nalan Ziyun is a fake, brought in by Nalan Jingza in order to replace that missing child. Apart from Nalan Jingza, only I and the third elder know of this matter. As Nalan Yanming said this, he was also rolling around on the floor due to the pain. As he was rolling around, black blood continually leaked out of the wound on his body. Seeing this scene, it was evident that the intoxicated blood poison in his body had completely broke out. One Jiutian Xuannu is a fairy in Chinese mythology. Here is her Wikipedia page. Chapter 346. Where did he truly go? Save me. Quickly save me. I am Nalan family's great elder. I'm the only one who can bring you back to Nalan family. I'm the only one who can get you to recognize your ancestors. Do you hear me? Quickly save me. If you want to blame something, then blame the fact that you're Nalan family's people. Hashi coldly chuckled. Nobody knew when another bottle appeared in her hands, but she lightly sprinkled the medicine out. Immediately, Nalan Yanming's shrieks became fiercer, and his body was unable to keep rolling. He was only able to lie on the floor and twitch. The wound on his body burst open and black blood and pus sprayed everywhere. In the blink of an eye, a puddle of blood formed. Whilst Hashi was sprinkling her medicine on Nalan Yanming, Nangongyu had long separated the crowd from Nalan Yanming. At this moment he saw that even Nalan Yanming's skeleton was gone. However, Hashi's gaze was filled with deep concentration. He thought that Hashi was grieving and couldn't help but walk up to Hashi, taking her into his arms and hugging her closely, softly saying, no matter what type of person you are or what sort of identity you have in my heart, you are still my Shi'er. You are still my Wang Fei. Hashi was distracted for a while. By the time she realized that this fellow was comforting her, she couldn't help but feel as if it's simultaneously somewhat funny and moving. Shaking her head, regarding Nalan family's people, as far as I'm concerned, they're just insignificant strangers to me. How can I be affected by their matters, life or death? I was merely thinking about Nalan Ziyun. Hashi's only impression on Nalan Ziyun, this younger brother, was from when she was merely 5 years old. At that time, they were still living in the small courtyard, mutually dependent for life. However, when Nalan Hashi was 5, she fell ill with a fever. After she woke up, she never saw her younger brother again. What Nurse Chen had told her, Nalan Manor's people had taken her younger brother away. The previous Nalan Hashi had gone to Nalan Manor to inquire about this matter. But it was never disclosed to her that her younger brother wasn't even in Nalan Manor anymore. In fact, he was sent away to study in a sect. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, 10 or so odd years had passed. Nalan Hashi had already given up on seeing her little brother again. However, that doesn't mean she doesn't miss him. This was actually one of Nalan Hashi's last desires before she died. She wishes to confirm that her younger brother has lived well. Now Nalan Yanming told her that the third young master, Nalan Ziyun, studying at the sect was fake? Then where did he truly go? Even if Nalan Ziyun died at the age of 5, nobody would have pursued the matter. Why did Nalan Jingza still bring out a fake Nalan Ziyun? After listening to Hashi's words, he knew that she wasn't grieving, and Nangongyu let out a breath. Lightly stroking her hair, you can rest assured, I'll send people to go investigate Nalan Ziyun. Hashi nodded her head, and was just about to speak when she suddenly heard the sound of something plopping coming from within the medicinal field. Soon after, a flash of purple also appeared. Dan Dan and the purple abyss vine, who were originally wreaking havoc inside the medicinal field, had returned into her space. Hushi didn't enter the space and could only watch as Dan's whole body was enveloped in a spiritual aura. His small stomach was perfectly round and he seemed to have finally eaten enough. Hushi suddenly felt as if she didn't know whether to laugh or cry, scolding him, "Little chowhound." But before she could put her heart down, Purple Abyss Vine energetically came up, and its anxious thoughts were felt by Hushi. The Purple Abyss Vine was apparently very uneasy and fretful. However, it had no way to clearly express what it felt uneasy about. Hushi was puzzled when suddenly a strong wave of spiritual force burst out from inside the medicinal field. One mutually dependent for life, to rely on one another for survival. Chapter 347. Completely healed. Immediately after, a dazzling white light beam descended from the sky. Along with the beam came an immense force of spiritual power, pushing down on the medicinal field. When the beam of light made contact, it quickly spread. In the blink of an eye, it covered every inch of the ground in the medicinal field. To add on to that, all the warriors standing in the middle of the light beam seemed to be isolated from everyone else. They seemed to have become invisible. Nobody could see or hear them anymore. Everyone couldn't help but panic. Most of all, this group of people who just experienced the impact of intoxicated blood poison. At this moment, their hearts were filled with fear of the unknown. Nangongyu's response quickly covered Hushi and Qinglong with his void spiritual barrier. Wu Yu waited for everyone else to be enveloped. However, just as he was about to pull Hushi into his embrace, a green beam quickly shot towards Hushi. For a moment, Hushi didn't even process what had happened. She only felt a boom in her head, and following that, everything in front of her eyes changed. After returning back to her soul one, Hushi found herself in both an unfamiliar yet familiar place. She said it was familiar because this was the place she had met the little golden dragon and lifted its seal. She said it was unfamiliar because this originally dusky and narrow space had undergone some large changes. The whole space had become gold and jade in glorious splendor, too. There were countless night pearls hanging from the ceiling, giving off a soft yet bright light. Originally, there were fuzzy mirrors all around, but now they all seemed clear. The mirror showed the scene inside the secret territory, including Nangongyu and everyone else's images. However, currently, the images in the mirror were all frozen, as if time had completely stopped in the secret territory. There was suspicion in Hushi's heart. She secretly thought, could it be that because the little golden dragon ate the divine dragon fruit and woke up, bringing her back to his original nest? At this moment, she heard the little golden dragon's old and decrepit voice. "Woman, at least one can say you have a good heart. You know that Benzong III got such an injury in order to save you, so you obtained the divine dragon fruit for Benzong. At least Benzong's efforts in Zijin Palace weren't wasted." After that was said, a very small gold dragon sitting on a pink cloud came down in front of Hushi. It seems that the little golden dragon had completely healed by now. The golden scales on his body were glistening. Along with his body's originally thumb-sized width got wider. However, the cotton candy-like pink cloud he was riding on, when matched with his tiny body, didn't match the fact that he was the noble and mighty golden dragon. Hushi restrained herself from smiling. "At least your scales resemble a dragon's now, unlike before when someone could have mistaken you as a snake." The little golden dragon suddenly became angry at Hushi, pointing at her and cursing incessantly. Hushi suddenly got rid of her teasing tone. "No matter what, thank you for protecting Dan at Zijin Palace, and thank you for protecting me too." The little golden dragon's scolding stopped and coldly snorted. "This still isn't good enough." Hushi didn't mind his arrogant character and changed the subject. "As long as you're good, then it's good. Why did you suddenly bring me back to this room? What of this matter of me bringing you back?" Having heard what was said, the little golden dragon raised its voice. "It's clearly you who triggered the secret territory's restriction, starting the transfer of the secret territory's controlling right. One after returning back to her soul. In this case, Hushi didn't actually leave her soul. She just returned from La La Land. 2 gold and jade in glorious splendor. A dazzling sight, 3 Benzong, literally translates as this senior. Chapter 348 Heaven-defying luck. The little golden dragon's words alarmed Huxi. The secret territories controlling right? How could this be? After becoming the descendant of Zijin Palace, the sealed dragon territory was already considered hers. But the information left by the original master of Zijin Palace did pass on information, saying that obtaining the controlling right over the secret territory wasn't an easy task. Even if the secret territory closes, she still may not obtain it. Huxi originally didn't hold much hope. When she was in the 100 Herb Mist, she clearly didn't do much. So how did she still obtain the controlling right to the secret territory? The little golden dragon raised his head, groaning. Even if I don't want to admit it, but you, woman, still have some abilities. Although you can't be compared to my previous master. But to let me reluctantly admit this to you isn't an impossible thing. Having said this, the little golden dragon pointed at the floor and lowered its voice. If you want to obtain control over sealed dragon domain's secret territory, then, first, you must have remarkable talent and willpower. You were already verified when you inherited the Zijin Palace. Second, you need to go through and collect the 5 heavenly spiritual treasures from Greenwood Realm, Water Moon Realm, Burning Heaven Realm, Ice Snow Realm, and Desolate Desert Realm in order to prove that you've mastered the strength of the secret territory. Originally, this is extremely hard to accomplish. However, who could have thought that you saved so many people, and by an accident arising from many causes, you managed to get all 5 of the secret territory's heavenly spiritual treasures. However, having just these treasures isn't enough. You have to be able to condense enough spiritual power to touch the secret territory's restriction barrier. In fact, this can only be done by gold core stage and above martial artists. However, due to the fact that, just now, Dan and your purple abyss vine ate so many magical plants, it was just enough to touch the secret territory's restriction barrier. Although the little golden dragon was disoriented at the time, due to his contract with Huxi, he was still able to clearly see everything outside the space. Even he had to sigh. This little girl has a formidable amount of strength and potential. In addition, she also had luck that defied the heavens. Requirements which were supposed to be difficult to accomplish was, unexpectedly, easily attained by her. Thinking up to here, the little golden dragon coldly snorted and flew higher up. Keeping his arrogant character, he coldly said, "And of course the most important point is that you must be able to become the master Benzin has genuinely approved of. That means that I must willingly enter a life and death blood contract with you, which can't be reversed, not the originally dispensable contract we had. By becoming Benzin's genuine master, to obtain my whole heart's willing approval, only then can you become the secret territory's true master." As soon as the little golden dragon said this, it swooped down, and when it neared the side of Huxi's neck, it firmly bit down. For a while Huxi didn't see anything. She didn't have enough time to dodge. She only felt the pain in her neck. Soon after, a gold-colored beam enveloped both her and the little golden dragon. Moments later, the golden beam scattered and the wound on Huxi's neck disappeared without a trace. However, the golden mark of a dragon appeared on the hollow of her palm. This golden mark was completely different from the gold lines she received when she and the little golden dragon initially drew their contract. This mark was incomparably clear. It seemed to have gone deep into her flesh. It also held a faint feeling of great power. Although the golden dragon mark quickly disappeared from Huxi's palm, she was still able to clearly sense it. It seemed as if there was a strange memory that didn't belong to her, burned into her mind. Huxi knew that these memories were part of the dragon race's inheritance. But now these memories were fuzzy and she was only able to see one sentence clearly. One by an accident arising from many causes, a freak combination of facts. Chapter 349 The best timing through blood, to serve as my brand, abandon hatred, forget glory. Thousands of generations, never betraying. May the dragon race's glory from millions of years prior, one day appear again. Huxi didn't understand much of what this sentence meant, but strangely enough, she could sense the sorrow, despair, and hope contained within the words. And at this moment, under the soles of her feet, a brilliant light suddenly started brightly shining. Just now, Hashi discovered that the design engraved on the floor of the room resembled a pentagram. Each of the 5 angles of the pentagram was perfectly aligned with one of the mirrors while she stood in the center of the pentagram. The entire pentagram was lit up and Hashi felt as if the mirrors were all flying towards her. Soon after, she was able to clearly see every nook and cranny inside the secret territory. The little golden dragon's proud voice and mischievous laughter was soon heard. When the controlling right of the secret territory is handed over, the entire secret territory is in a completely static state. This includes all the magical beasts and martial artists currently inside the secret territory. In the entire sealed dragon domain, only you and I are able to move, although this period of time is short. Moreover, later on, even if you are in control of the secret territory, you won't be able to replicate this again. The most you can do is drive the people you dislike out of the secret territory. But now, during this time, no matter what you wish to do, these people are completely unable to resist. Once Hashi heard these words, a weird smile appeared on her face. The little golden dragon's words weren't wrong. This truly was the best timing. Especially at this moment. Hashi already spotted the frozen figures of Feng Yunjing and Feng Lianing. They were currently next to a stream of spring water in the ice-snow realm. Several disciples from Luli sect were currently in the process of preparing to remove a nearby tiny tree. Having just received control of the secret territory, naturally, Hashi also knew of each inch of soil and treasure inside the secret territory. She knew that this stream was called the spiritual spring stream, and that tree was the spring tree. That tree was one of 3 of Miluo continent's great tree deities. Every 200 years, a liquid called Heaven's Alcohol will flow out from the spiritual spring tree's roots. When mixed with the spring water, a small puddle of spiritual spring stream will form. In Miluo continent, the Feng family was currently like the sun at noon. In addition to the fact that their skills were more talented than those of ordinary individuals, the Feng family also had a group of high-level alchemists. The pills refined by these alchemists were able to allow the children of Feng family to advance by leaps and bounds. However, it's not without harm if someone takes the pills for a long time. No matter how pure and perfect the pill was, each pill contained quantities of an individual medicine. These individual medicines would accumulate, and made it easy for martial artists to go overboard when being promoted. According to research done by ancestors of Feng family, this spiritual spring tree was able to dissolve this individual medicine. Therefore, Feng Yunjing was determined to get this tree. Furthermore, this tree was difficult to locate inside the ice-snow realm. Seeing this scene, Hashi couldn't help but smile. Luckily for her, the time she received the inheritance was very good. Otherwise, Feng Yunjing would be able to take away this spiritual spring tree. Although she didn't value the tree as rare, when she thought about her enemy getting good things, she felt unhappy. To the side, the little golden dragon's mouth twitched. Unfortunately, although this standstill of time is powerful, there are some restrictions. You can't touch the bodies of martial artists. Otherwise, boss, you are the knife that erased that slut. Isn't that just death ending all your troubles? Chapter 350 Slowly settling accounts. Hashi softly smiled. To erase her with a knife, isn't that too cheap of a fate for Feng Lianing? Rest assured, my patience is very good. What we have is time. I'll slowly settle my accounts with her. Seeing that the time left for the people to remain frozen was almost up, Hashi no longer hesitated. She quickly began to manipulate the people inside the secret territory. Although she couldn't directly touch the people inside the secret territory, she could move them around. The storage items that were stored inside the storage rings that the martial artists carried around were hard for her to take. However, the charms they wore on the outside or held in their hands, she kindly took, as if they were being offered to her. Hashi's mouth picked up into a sinister smile. Looking around, she quickly made up her mind. After Feng Yunjing and his party left the Greenwood realm, they quickly found the spiritual spring tree by following the secret method that Feng family's elder alchemist provided. But there were 7 rank 5 magical beasts guarding the spiritual spring tree. Each rank 5 magical beast was equivalent to gold core stage cultivation. Feng Yunjing, Feng Lianing, and disciples of the Luli sect wasted a lot of labor in order to completely defeat these 7 rank 5 magical beasts. Seeing that the spiritual spring tree was so close, Feng Yunjing's eyes flashed with something. As long as he was able to obtain this tree, the danger of taking so many pills would be eliminated. Then, Feng family would be able to stand at the summit of Miluo continent. From now on, nobody on this earth would be able to fight or obstruct him. Everything he wanted, every person he wanted, he would be able to easily grasp in the palm of his hand. Everybody was filled with excitement. They were so excited that they didn't even bother to clean up the 7 rank 5 magical beasts. They took out a 9th level spiritual shovel and prepared to move the spiritual spring tree. But after a quarter of an hour, something occurred that shocked Feng Yunjing. His hand just touched one of the leaves on the spiritual spring tree before he felt the sky spin and the earth go round one. When he opened his eyes, the scenery before his eyes had completely changed. The sounds of the magical beasts' roars sounded in the air, rising and falling one after another. What stood in front of them wasn't 7 rank 5 magical beasts anymore. Instead, hundreds of thousands of magical spirit beasts surrounded them. These magical beasts contained 3 rank 4 magical beasts, some rank 5 and even one at rank 6. Not only that, but they were no longer located in front of the spiritual spring tree. Instead, they found themselves in a desolate desert. Feng Yunjing's face changed. He was just about to use the weapon he carried to resist the magical beasts. But he was stunned to find that the weapon that was originally in his palm had, at some unknown point, disappeared. As it turns out, Feng Lianing, Nie Jinshen, and the rest of the disciples of Luli sect found themselves in a similar situation. Feng Lianing had long since already been scared stupid by the magical beast's roars, and the weapon in her hand had also disappeared. She was so panicked, she found that she didn't have enough time to take out another weapon from her storage ring before a magical beast snarled and pounced towards her. I don't want to die. Feng Lianing shrieked and ruthlessly pulled a disciple of Luli sect to stand in front of her. Only a tearing sound was heard as the disciple was horribly torn apart. The Luli sect disciple didn't even have time to groan before they became a pool of flesh. Nie Jinshen also found himself caught off guard, and to add on to the fact, he was caught off guard by a rank 5 magical beast. He was terrified, noticing what Feng Lianing did. He also instinctively pulled 2 Luli sect disciples in front of him. Feng Yunjing's cultivation level was higher than those 2. Therefore he was able to take out a new weapon and kill in all directions. However, the number of magical beasts in front of them was too high, and the bodies of these few people all contained the scent of the spiritual spring tree, causing the magical beasts became extremely excited. Even Feng Yunjing was unable to make them fearfully withdraw. Chapter 351. Leaving the secret territory momentarily, the flesh flew in all directions. The bones rumbled and rolled around on the floor. In the hot and overgrown desert, the air reeked of blood for a short period of time. This caused the people to feel sick and heightened the magical beast's excitement. As time went by, Feng Yunjing's complexion became more and more unsightly. The spiritual power inside his body was beginning to run out. And the people around him, the disciples of Luli sect, were slowly dwindling. Some of them were devoured by the magical beasts and others were taken by Feng Lianing and Nie Jinshen to act as a shield. Even Feng Lianing and Nie Jinshen, who took so many of the disciples to use as scapegoats, were also becoming battered and exhausted. Above all were Feng Lianying's clothes, which were originally used to showcase her elegant figure. Although they did have some defensive attributes, how could they possibly be enough to endure against the magical beasts? By now her clothes had already been torn into shreds by the magical beasts, showing faint traces of her underwear. Most of the disciples of Luli sect had already been injured or dead, leaving almost none left. Feng Yunjing was stuck in combat with the rank 6 magical beast, as the 3 rank 4 magical beasts pounced towards Feng Lianing. These several people's spiritual power was almost used up. Feng Lianing couldn't hold it anymore. She fell apart and shouted, "No. No. I don't want to die. Save me ah. Nie Jinshen, don't you like me? Quick, save me." Saying this, she grabbed Nie Jinshen and pulled him in front of her. Quick, block the attack for me. Nie Jinshin's eyes flashed with extreme fear and shock, as he began to randomly swinging the long sword in his hand around. However, one magical beast still managed to bite down on his left hand. The only noise he heard was ka-ka, as piercing bursts of pain stabbed him. Nie Jinshin could feel the bones on his left hand breaking apart. Meanwhile, another magical beast's bloody mouth came near his face. The fear of life or death scared Nie Jinshin into freezing up. He wanted to call for help, he wanted to escape. But his whole body seemed to be rigid. Aside from desperately waiting for his death, he could do nothing else. He thought about how he granted whatever was asked for from Feng Lianing over these past 10 years, how meek and subservient he was. Then he thought about how ruthlessly she just treated him. At this moment, any love Nie Jinshin held for Feng Lianing completely vanished. Except for undeserved desire, the only feelings he had left over were a heart full of hate and towards her. Ideas of trampling her filled his mind. It seemed like, soon, the lives of Feng Lianing and Nie Jinshin were about to end, and Feng Yunjing wasn't faring much better either. During this time, 1,000 pounds were hung by a thread. However, the scene before these three people's eyes suddenly changed. There was no longer the scorching hot temperatures, the magical beast's stinky breaths, dust-filled sky, and the foul smell that caused people to feel nauseous. Instead, it was replaced by the sweet smell of vegetation and a gentle breeze. Feng Yunjing and the others looked all around. They found out that they were unexpectedly in the middle of a valley. Moreover, the landform of this valley was awfully familiar. Wasn't this where these several people initially entered into Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory? What's the matter with this? How could they have suddenly appeared in the middle of a group of magical beasts? Then, in the blink of an eye, leave the secret territory? Feng Yunjing was both shocked and angry when he suddenly heard a shout. Ah, the rank 5 spirit crystal I just won. I was clearly holding it in my hand. Why is it missing now? I was clearly in Burning Heaven Realm just a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye I'm here now. The box full of spiritual fruits I harvested. Its value was millions of crystal stones worth of treasures. With great difficulty I was able to defeat the guardian beast in order to pick these fruits. How are there none left now? In the end, who's done this? Why have we all been sent out? Chapter 352 Jade Body on Display. Don't tell me that something suddenly happened inside Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory, so it pushed us outside. Everybody's tongues were wagging, their faces were filled with shock. But nobody was able to figure out what had happened. Suddenly, someone's deep voice sounded out. I feel as if this situation seems to feel as if somebody has gained control over the secret dragon domain. What? How could this be? Legends say this secret territory is the almighty martial artist's. How could it be controlled by someone else? Feng Yunjing's face didn't appear nervous. He slowly took out a spirit pill and swallowed the replenishing spirit pill. But something gloomy and dark flashed by his eyes. Just now he almost obtained the spiritual spring tree. But now, he failed through lack of a final effort, and even lost dozens of Luli Sect's elite disciples. This time, the loss Feng family suffered could be said to be disastrous. Zijin Palace's inheritance wasn't obtained. In 100 Herb missed Feng Lianing lost popular feeling, and most importantly, they narrowly missed getting the spiritual spring tree. This time, he truly didn't know what to say when he returned. It was just, how could he always feel as if all these acts were deliberately planned against Feng family? Just like the situation now, where they were thrown out of the secret territory. The martial artists before them also lost the weapons they had been carrying in their hands. And their dozen or so people were thrown into the middle of a crowd of magical beasts. They experienced 9 deaths and were still alive, 1. Almost not making it out alive. Could it be that someone truly got control over the secret territory? If that's the case, who was able to obtain control over the Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory? Could it be Nangongyu? No. Impossible. Feng Yunjing's thoughts swept past this idea, immediately denying it. What type of place was Sealed Dragon territory? These martial artists in front of him only knew one and understood half too. But he, who was the person who held great political power inside Feng family, was clear. This sacred place had existed for a millennium. Every big influential family on Miluo continent had been preparing for secret dragon domain's secret territory to open for several hundred years. In the event that someone was able to get control over sealed dragon domain's secret territory, then how powerful was that person? If this type of person truly decided to oppose Feng family, then how could they, Feng family, possibly resist? Just as Feng Yunjing was just thinking about such a person, he heard a cry of surprise. In the blink of an eye, he saw Feng Lianing crawling up from the ground. It's unclear whether it was due to the fact that she was roasted by the hot temperatures inside the barren desert, or if it was due to the situation with the magical beast scratching her. But when she stood up, the clothes on her body, unexpectedly, completely fell apart and turned into a puddle of powder. In a flash, Feng Lianing was no longer wearing any clothes, causing her jade-like body to be put on display. Originally, everyone was busy being angry over their lost weapons and asking why they had been sent out of the secret territory, so nobody paid attention to Feng Lianing. But everyone's gaze turned towards Feng Lianing after her shout just now. Immediately, there were gasps of surprise coming all around. No sooner after one subsides, another arises. Most of all the low-level male martial artists looked up and down at Feng Lianing's fruit-like body as their eyes filled with lust and excitement. Someone couldn't help themselves and whispered, "Aya 3. This couldn't be the Ice Lotus Fairy, right? I didn't expect her to be so passionate and bold, not even wearing clothes in front of all these martial artists." Clicking their tongue. Look at this soft and tender flesh. Pampered girls raised by influential families really aren't the same. If I can get on intimate terms with this person, I would willingly die. How could Feng Lianing ever imagine that after struggling to escape from that beast, going back would also welcome such humiliation? For a moment, her beautiful face was snow white and her two hands were clenched together, hugging her shivering body. She wanted to take out a new set of clothes from her storage ring, but was unable to because her spiritual power was all used up. She wouldn't be able to take anything out for a while. 9 deaths and were still alive. They were only narrowly able to escape. 2 knew 1 and understood half. Feng Yunjing is saying these people are ignorant. 3. Aya, a term used to express dismay, exasperation or surprise. Chapter 353. Completely ruined. Immediately, her pair of beautiful eyes filled with tears. It would appear to be as if I saw a white lotus. But the male martial artists all began to feel sorry and take pity on her. But there were also female martial artists who disapproved of her attitude, coldly standing to the side and heatedly mocking her. Truly shameless. Obviously you're wanton, yet you're still sitting here putting out a pitiful appearance. Exactly, if I was her, I would have been ashamed to even see people. Unexpectedly, she puts on a pitiful face trying to get me to feel sorry for her. What Ice Lotus Fairy? All I see is a white lotus flower putting on an act of flirtatious behavior. Feng Lianing just got up before realizing how awful her current situation was. Originally she wanted to put on a weak, couldn't-do-harmed expression in order to evoke some sympathy. But now, having heard the comments of these women, her face twisted and the shame in her eyes completely changed to bitter hatred. In the end, who was it who harmed Feng family? Who caused Feng Lianing to make such a fool of herself? The painstaking effort she exerted to build up her image these past few years, her blissful fated marriage, it was all ruined in these short few days, completely ruined. No matter who caused her to be so humiliated today, she wanted to put it all on Shiyu, that slut. She definitely won't let go of that slut. There will be a day when she kills that slut and leaves her without a burial site. Under other people's loathing, wanton, passionate, or criticizing gazes, Feng Lianying's body had almost no clothing to cover herself, and felt as if there were brambles and thorns on her back. 1. Unfortunately, she completely wasted her spiritual power. She couldn't even take out one piece of clothing. Her eyes were reddened with tears. Suddenly, a warm piece of clothing was draped over her, covering her body. Feng Lianing turned her head around, and saw Nie Jinshan's deeply concerned gaze. "Lianing Mimi, are you okay? Those magical beasts from before didn't hurt you, right?" Feng Lianing stared blankly, recalling her previous actions inside the group of magical beasts. How she pulled Nie Jinshin in front of her to act as her shield and suddenly felt as if she had a bit of a guilty conscience. Nie Jinshin seemed to have not noticed her emotions, softly saying, "If Lianing Mimi doesn't take offense, she can wear my clothing." At first, Feng Lianing was embarrassed. But after raising her head up and seeing Nie Jinshin's tender and infatuated gaze, she stood up, feeling proud and arrogant again. Nie Jinshin was the dog that stuck to her side. No matter how many times she tossed him around or humiliated, he would never betray her. Although she didn't care much for this dog continually pursued her. This greatly satisfied her vanity. Feng Lianing was too busy feeling proud of herself, and didn't notice Nie Jinshin bowing his head down to cover the cold look flitting through his eyes. Just as Feng Lianing put on Nie Jinshin's clothes, Feng Yunjing coldly smiled. "Let's go. We'll return to Feng family first before discussing." They must go back as soon as possible and report today's matter to their elders. As for Feng Lianing, that stupid woman who lost face today, Feng Yunjing already concocted a plan to completely abandon this waste. Watching as Feng Lianing and Feng Yunjing prepared to leave, the people who were previously too scared to speak out in front of Feng family's great prestige suddenly shouted out. The scene regarding Feng family's eldest daughter, the Ice Lotus Fairy, was quickly spread through word of mouth. Everybody repeated over and over again how Feng Lianying's body was on display after everyone left the secret territory. By the next day, the news was popular gossip alongside news of Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory. In Yanjing City, inside all the great streets and alleys too, everybody knew this information. One brambles and thorns on her back. She felt uneasy and nervous. Two great streets and alleys, everywhere in the city. Chapter 354 Repaying double the amount. Watching as the three figures vanished, the little golden dragon standing by Hushi gloomily said, "Such a pity. If this time when the secret territory's control is being handed over was longer, then those three people would have been torn apart by the magical beasts." Contrary to one might think, Hushi didn't seem to have any big reaction. She was standing to the side, looking over all the treasures she plundered today, faintly saying, "Feng Yunjing is at nascent soul stage. If his life was truly in danger, the magical beasts may not be able to do much damage to him. In fact, he may even do damage to the secret territory instead." You should have also seen the chilliness in Nie Jinshin's eyes. Looks like he won't be protecting his Ice Lotus Fairy with all his heart anymore. To add on to the fact the shame Feng Lianing just lost in front of everyone, it won't be long before everyone knows about what happened here. Hee. Inside Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory control room, Hushi could not only control every corner inside the secret territory, she could clearly see about 10 kilometers outside as well. In other words, even if she didn't leave the secret territory, the entire Tsang Mountain was under her control as well. Therefore, even though Feng Lianing and the other martial artists were kicked out of the secret territory, Hushi could still clearly see all of their actions. Hushi's mouth lifted up into an unfeeling smile, and in passing she waved her hand, taking the treasured items she just earned into her space. "Unhurriedly," she said. "Feng Lianing, this vicious and merciless White Lotus. First she hurt you and Dan Dan, then she continuously plots against me, trying to kill me. How could she die so easily to those magical beasts? Isn't that too convenient for her? Rest assured, Long One, this woman hurt you and Dan Dan. There will definitely be a day when she repays you double the amount." After Hushi's words, she listened to the little divine dragon getting fired up. He really was worthy of being her family's boss. Although his strength wasn't profound yet, his domineering attitude was really matchless. It was until his last few words that caused Hushi's smile to come crashing down. "Don't call me Long, it's not imposing enough. I'm the magnificent golden dragon. How can I be called such a wet behind the ears name too?" Hushi chuckled. "This is the nickname Dan Dan gave you. If you want to protest, go find Dan Dan. But I'll warn you, if you cause Dan Dan to cry, my family's Little Purple won't let you get away with it." Little Purple is precisely the purple abyss vine. After this guy and Dan Dan ate all those magical plants, They developed a deep foodie friendship. Adding to the fact was that Dan Dan was especially clever and obedient. Every day, he would call Little Purple Anti-Purple Abyss, causing the Purple Abyss Vine to treat Dan Dan even more generously than her, the master. The little divine dragon's face immediately came crashing down. He definitely wasn't scared of Dan Dan. But when he thought about that adorable little pink pig's weeping appearance, the little divine dragon felt as if all the scales on his body hurt. Especially twitchy, especially unable to endure. Hushi no longer paid any mind to this confused little guy. She tilted her head up, directing her attention to the top of the room. Actually, this secret room was not just a singular room, but the basement of a palace. After gaining control of the secret territory, Hushi found that the ceiling in this room was completely clear. Looking up, she could see what appeared to be the site of a dazzling palace. One Long. This is a nickname of sorts for the little divine dragon. Long means dragon too wet behind the ears, immature and unexperienced. Chapter 355 Overcoming Catastrophe. To ascend heavenwards from here, one could see the faint shadow of a flying cyan sword. The little golden dragon followed Hushi's gaze and looked at the flying cyan sword. His face couldn't help but be filled with a longing expression. That's the heart of sealed dragon domain. It's also the most precious item inside the entirety of secret territory. Sealed dragon sword. That year, when my family's master flew upwards, he used this exact spirit weapon. At that time on Miluo continent, my master killed gods if gods blocked and killed Buddhas if Buddhas blocked. 1. Except for those old fellows who were on the same level as master, other people couldn't even see master's back. And I am one of master's spirit pets. How powerful is that? Nobody is my rival. But afterward, when master overcame catastrophe and ascended heavenwards too, Qing Sha and I failed and were unable to follow master. Spirit beast Qing Sha was completely extinguished. All that's left is a broken strand of primordial spirit that's left by the owner inside the secret territory. But I'm better than Qing Sha, that idiot. Although I was also extinguished, the dragon race has the ability to reincarnate. We can reincarnate if we give up on our cultivation and start fresh. So master left sealed dragon domain to me and left the sealed dragon sword on me, so it wouldn't fall apart, letting me wait for a fated person to come in and break the seal, so that I may see the light again. However, although the seal has been removed and I can cultivate again, I can't see my master ever again in this lifetime. Flying beyond the boundaries? Hushi's eyes brightened up and her lips curled up into a fighting spirit smile. Ever since she came to this strange world, she never thought about stopping her steps. Becoming stronger until she can't be restricted or suppressed again. Until her two eyes can look over the whole world and her feet can walk over every inch of land. Looking at the little golden dragon's sadness, Hushi smiled proudly. Isn't it just ascending upwards after overcoming catastrophe? After being defeated once, what are you afraid of? If you follow me, there will surely be a time when you can attempt to overcome catastrophe and ascend heavenwards again. When the time comes, are you scared you won't be able to find your previous master? The little golden dragon was stunned. It wanted to ridicule this woman overestimating her capabilities. One needed to at least be at Meridian's stage to overcome catastrophe and ascend heavenwards. This was such a distant matter. Saying these words now, it was just indulging in one's fantasies. But seeing Hushi's brilliant and bright eyes, the little golden dragon suddenly felt as if it was unable to refute her words. It always felt as if, no matter what formidable task this girl in front of it said, she seemed to always be able to accomplish it. Hushi no longer talked and pitifully looked towards the sealed dragon sword. Because the level of the sealed dragon domain's secret territory was too high, she was unable to access some places, even though she was now in control of the secret territory. For example, the sealed dragon sword inside the palace's main hall. At the very least, she needed to be gold core stage in order to bypass the restriction. Otherwise, if you are able to hold the sword but you hurt all sides, just think about it. But it's just wishful thinking, nothing more. If she was truly able to take out the sealed dragon sword, The little golden dragon was afraid that she would be chased by people everywhere. After finishing dealing with the secret territories matters, and sending the little golden dragon into her space, Hushi went back and appeared in front of Nangongyu. Cheer. Upon seeing Hushi, Nangongyu firmly carried her. His face was full of anxiousness. Did you get hurt? Sensing Nangongyu's anger and concern, Hushi was distracted. Immediately she softly said, "Didn't I leave you a slip of paper saying that I was fine? 1. Killed gods if gods blocked and killed Buddhas if Buddhas blocked. To overcome every obstacle. 2. Overcoming catastrophe to ascend heavenwards. After overcoming some calamity, one will become a god." Chapter 356. Are you willing to marry me? After Nangongyu held on to her for a moment, he slowly loosened his grip on her. Pinching her nose and faking anger, he said, "You still dare to talk? You left only a slip of paper with no trace of you around. How was I supposed to know if you were coerced into doing that? Do you still say that I shouldn't have worried?" Hushi lowly coughed twice. She was rarely embarrassed. But at that time she wanted to let Feng Lianing and Feng Yunjing experience some unluckiness. Momentarily, she was up to her ears in work. 1. So, she only had time to hurriedly leave a slip of paper for Nangongyu and the rest of them. At the time, she didn't think too much of it. Wu Yu and Gu Lufeng weren't as anxious as Nangongyu, but when they saw that Hushi returned safe and sound, they were also quite happy. But thinking about how those several people inexplicably ended up outside the secret territory, Wu Yu couldn't help but ask, "It's very strange. With Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory being so big, unless someone touched the control core, how could everyone has been sent out? Don't tell me that the secret territory encountered some sort of problem? Unless someone obtained the Sealed Dragon Sword?" As everyone knows, Sealed Dragon Domain was used to hold the Sealed Dragon Sword. If someone was able to get the sword, then secret territory's core control would certainly open. Hushi rubbed her nose and didn't dare to say any more. The little golden dragon had said that before she could hold the sealed dragon sword, she must not let anyone know she was the owner of the secret territory. This included even the people closest to her. Otherwise, if someone killed her, the secret territory would collapse and the little golden dragon would experience a violent death. Nangongyu looked at the deep burning in Hushi's eyes. He seemed to have finally guessed what was going on. But instead of saying anything, he rubbed the top of Hushi's head, softly saying, "Sheer, do you want to come back to Hell King Manor with me?" Hushi gloomily shook her head. "Why do you want me to follow you back to Hell King Manor? I still have to settle some matters inside Sung Mountain. Once I finish dealing with them, I'll return to my own courtyard." Unexpectedly, Nangongyu didn't continue to insist. Nodding his head, something gloomy flashed in his eyes. "You returning to your own courtyard is good too. I'll let Wu Xian follow you, to protect you." Just as Hushi was about to retort, Nangongyu extended his hand out to softly caress her warm cheek, saying with a gentle and low voice, "During this time, I won't be able to come find you. You have to obediently take good care of yourself and wait for me to come back, and 2? Hushi unhappily slapped his hand away. Unexpectedly, when she slapped his hand, her hand landed on top of his. Unlike previous times, Nangongyu extended his other hand and brought her into his embrace. His deep voice, which faintly seemed to hold weakness and praying, sounded in her ears. "Sheer, in the event that everything is over, are you willing to marry me?" Hushi was stunned. It seemed as if something was stuck in her throat, leaving her speechless. Hushi vaguely knew that Nangongyu needed to attend to a very important and dangerous matter, so the words he spoke just now seemed to sound like his last dying words. Hushi deliberately wanted to question what he was going to do, but seeing Nangongyu's eyes filled with stars and burning, Hushi swallowed any words she wanted to say. Hushi rolled around a small storage ring on her palm. Her complexion was indifferent, and the words she spoke held even less emotions. "I'm replying no to your question. After all, when you go there, only God knows if you'll ever reappear in front of my face again." It wasn't even a moment later when she threw the storage ring onto Nangongyu's body, indifferently saying, "Everything inside here is for you. I believe that these things will be helpful for you, no matter what you're doing." one up to her ears in work. She was so busy, everything basically slipped out of her mind or she was too busy to do anything else. Tuan, same use as okay. Chapter 357. Wait for me to come back. Nangongyu was startled. He looked around inside the storage ring. His eyes quickly showed astonishment. The ring was filled full of magic weapons and spirit fruits that were hard to estimate the worth of. By taking just a bite out of those spirit fruits, one would completely replenish their spirit energy. Additionally, there were also sacred-grade fighting pills called Lotus Mark Immortality Peach. In Miluo continent, one of these pills could be estimated to be worth a small city, but Hashi gave him 20 of them. So much so that inside the pile of magic weapons, there was a flying purple sword. Nangongyu's expression was extremely moved. The flying sword appeared in his hand. It quickly released the sound of an imperial chant. This is the... Hashi pursued her lips. This isn't the real sealed dragon sword, it's a fake the real owner made. But its power is 50% of the original sword. I can't use it at my current strength, so it's better to give it to you. This fake sealed dragon sword was originally inside the desolate desert realm. It was there that Hashi noticed its power was formidable. No magical creature dared to enter within 10 li, one of it. So she took it out. It was only after she took out the fake that she gloomily discovered she couldn't use it. Forget about it. She can't use the real sealed dragon sword. But now, she can't even use the fake one. She can only stare at it, too depressing. Looks like the most important thing to do now is increase her strength. Nangongyu dazedly stared at the long sword in his hand. Nangongyu's eyes glittered with tears. Hashi looked at Nangongyu, who seemed to have turned stupid. She thought he couldn't look up to this sealed dragon sword and wanted to say something. But before she could, Nangongyu suddenly extended his hand out and brought her into his embrace. Hugging her closely, he seemed to want to embed her into his flesh and blood. In my life, I've always been fighting alone from the beginning. When I grew up, I blocked wind and covered rain for others. You are the person I wish to protect the most in this life. But you're also the first one that I can't shield under my wing. Sure, wait for me to come back. You can't become fond of other men. You can't look at other men, and you can't let yourself be hurt. During the first half of Nangongyu's words, Hashi smiled and felt moved. But after hearing his last sentence, she couldn't help but roll her eyes. Pushing him away, she said, "Are you finished with your this can't do and that can't do?" This time, Nangongyu didn't continue speaking. He deeply stared at Hashi, seemingly trying to engrave her image into his mind. Then he quickly turned and left. Qinglong and Wu Yu quickly followed Nangongyu, walking along beside him. They saw him tightly biting his jaw and push his heart down. Master didn't tell Wang Fei the matter they were dealing with this time was to deal with the Feng family at a date earlier than what was originally planned. And Feng family not only had the support of Lu Li sect and the foundation of a millennium, they also had Feng family's scary influence. It could be said that in terms of going against Feng family this time, Hell King Manor didn't have much odds of success. But Master couldn't wait to abolish Feng family. He couldn't wait to get rid of Feng Yunjing and Feng Lianing, those two people who wished to bring harm to Wang Fei. Even more so, he couldn't wait to impressively marry Wang Fei through the door. Watching Nangongyu and the others leaving, Hashi's heart gave birth to indescribable sorrow. But she quickly threw this sorrow to the back of her mind. Turning around, she walked towards Gu Lufeng, Zhou Yenan and Gu Yidao. Gu Lufeng was distracted. He couldn't help but keep thinking of the intimate moment Hashi and Nangongyu just shared. Hashi had a delicate face, long eyelashes that slightly trembled, bright eyes and white teeth. So much so that compared to Nailin Yanming, the women in the drawing, to some degree, she was more elegant. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.